I just knew that, the longer you stay in the ring, the greater your chances of getting knocked out are. Right? If you continue to box, you will get beat. You will get knocked out. You will sustain injuries. You're going to get hurt.
Hey everyone, welcome to Trace Burnout. I'm Roger.
And I'm Dan.
And we finally have another Navy veteran in studio. It's been too long.
It has been. Well, not terribly long, but long enough.
Or not long enough. Depends on who you ask. Yeah. He had a very interesting career. He was in the Navy, of course, but he spent much of his career as a corpsman in the Marines, and he spent a lot of his career with marine life.
Sharks with frickin' lasers.
Is it too much to ask for sharks with frickin' laser beams on their foreheads? I'm the boss.
Stay tuned and you'll find out.
Brenden McMullen. Brenden, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, guys.
You came down here to visit us, and we absolutely appreciate that. And you are basking in the gravitational pull of the center of the universe. Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
I'm feeling it.
Do you feel your skin tingling?
I wanted to be here for the cannon shot at 0800. There's no need for that.
On a Saturday?
Yeah, well, every post is different. I don't know if Fort Bragg does it.
They don't not anymore.
We did when I was here, yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
So, does your family have a history of service?
Yeah. My dad and my grandfather were both. My grandfather's Army Air Corps P-51 driver. He actually spent the remainder of World War II in Stalag 9.
Oh.
And he retired as a lieutenant colonel. He made this transition from Army Air Corps to Air Force with General LeMay, and spent the rest of his time pretty much being a pilot in command and on command. So he did a lot of northern latitude surveys, got qualified in a metric ton of aircraft to fly, and on various missions with the newly formed USAF.
Yeah.
And so I don't think he made the transition to jets, and I believe he retired in the late 50s, early 60s. And then my dad joined in the mid-60s. I was born at Edwards Air Force Base. And he made a career out of it, and he actually had his retirement ceremony while I was in Navy boot camp.
Oh.
And moved while I was in boot camp.
Your father was an aviator as well?
He was basically a rocket scientist, so...
How is one basically a rocket scientist?
Yeah.
That's a fair question.
Well, he's a chemie, so he was with rocket fuel.
Okay.
And then he got into instructing, and he got into the contracting part of it. He had what we call the AIM-12 AMRAAM missile. That was one of his big projects, and he was on the NATO team for our allied forces to acquire that, we call it foreign acquisitions.
Yeah. So, with a history in the Air Force, why the Navy?
Well, I didn't have really a collegiate skill level in my academic skill level, and so basically, how your senior year of high school, you're kind of feeling. I was down in Florida, which. Educationally, we're right up there with Hawaii, Louisiana, Puerto Rico. Like, we're all fighting for 50th place, and quality of students, And so in the 80s, that's how it was. And but you're trying to fill up your schedule with the classes you like because you've already met the state requirements and stuff, So there's like three study halls, and with your girlfriend, hopefully. But my oceanography class, which was taught by one of the football coaches, we took a field trip down to Panama City, Florida, and to experimental dive unit. And I saw the divers down. There was a saturation dive on. And there's a place called the Gallery in there where the families can come in and watch the divers, talk to their husbands and dads and stuff.
Oh wow!
And so much like astronauts on the space shuttle. They're just same thing. Get on today what would be a Zoom call, and so it's CCTV. So so we went in there and they had a sat dive going, and I saw those hard hat divers. They're down there doing various stuff in the chamber. I think they were pressed below 300 feet or whatever their mission was that day, or their dive profile was for that week or whatever, because once they dropped that ocean simulation facility to a certain depth, it doesn't surface for a week or three, so they're...
What's a hard hat diver?
Like construction.
Okay.
They wear a hard hat. They wear the helmet. Like you saw Men of Honor with Master Chief Brashears.
I got to meet him before he died.
So did I,
yeah.
And in fact, we had the screening while I was an instructor at the schoolhouse.
Very cool.
But so that's the underwater wrench turning, torch burning diver. And I came home that day. I said, "That's what I'm doing right there. I'm gonna I want to be a wrench turning, torch burning diver. Go home to North Florida, which is where we were at Eglin Air Force Base at the time.
Oh, Panhandle.
Yeah, Fort Walton.
Gotcha.
I went to Niceville High School.
Okay.
And go back to the Gulf Coast somewhere, Galveston, Louisiana, whatever, and get into the petroleum industry as a hard hat diver. And so that was my master plan at 17 and a half.
Well, the plans that you make at 17, 18 years old, those are almost foolproof.
Solidified in granite.
Yeah, I mean, it's etched in stone.
Just like the Ten Commandments.
Yeah,
Thou shalt join the Navy and be a hard hat diver.
Which last time I checked, those tablets were broken.
That's right. Or at least carried away by the Babylonians.
Yeah, fair enough.
But so that was the plan. So that's a long answer to a short question. Yeah. If not Air Force, why Navy? So
yeah. So what was the family's reaction to joining the Navy? Did your grandfather say, I didn't spend all this time flying biplanes.
I know it. I know it.
to watch my boys sail around on a boat.
Yep. So my dad just said, I don't know that much about the Army, but if you want to be enlisted, the Air Force treats their enlisted the best out of all services, but they don't really make rank. He said if you want to be an officer, the Navy treats their officers the best out of all services. And he goes, don't know much about the Marines. He goes, but this is what you want to do. We'll support you. And even before I went to MEPS, he said, listen, if you think this is like your last resort or whatever, me and your mom will help you. We've got money set aside to help you go to attend college, but you got to do the work as long as you're working and you're dedicated.
Yeah.
And I just said, I think that would be a waste of my time and your money, and this is what I want to do. And he said, I think that's the smartest thing I ever heard you say.
Fair enough.
So yeah, that's how I got into Big Blue. And so I was delayed enlistment in like January, and then I shipped in July.
Of what year?
84.
84? Okay. Where'd you go to basic training?
Great Lakes, Illinois.
That's Chicago, right?
At that point, had
north of Chicago.
They still had multiple basic training locations.
They did
at that point. I think they're all at Great Lakes now.
It's consolidated now at Great Lakes. So there was Orlando, which I thought that was a no-brainer.
Right? You're already there.
Yep. Great Lakes and then San Diego. And so I think San Diego was the last one to close before it all went to Great Lakes. I think Orlando shut down. And then I believe... I think the monitors or the detailers, whoever places you and has you on track, they're going to consider your follow-on school. So Hospital Corps School was in Great Lakes. So that's how I got stuck there. So I was there in July all the way through January.
So you enlisted as a what?
Engine man.
Okay.
So Engine man was a 4-week. I knew I needed a rate. So if you go to the fleet undesignated, that's like what we call open contract.
They're going to stick you wherever they need you.
Exactly. That means, in the Army, Marine Corps, you'd probably be a grunt.
Needs of the Army.
That's right. That's right. You could be a mechanic driver. You could be a freaking cook. It's just what they need that year. And frankly, right around that time frame, things change. People don't get out; they re-enlist, and so when I graduated boot camp, which was pretty, it was a good time. It wasn't that physically demanding. That year, I guess maybe I was in the last easy class, but the weather there, the lake. I mean, it is Lake Michigan, and it is brutally hot and humid, much like my hometown in Florida. Without the soothing ocean breeze, it's just, it's brutal. In the winter, it's a whole nother story. I've never seen a wave be frozen before, and it's like an ocean, and it's frozen. That was crazy.
It used to sit under a glacier.
That's right. And it becomes one
lake
every
effect
winter.
snow.
Yeah, for real.
Oh, yeah.
So when I got out of boot camp, I went over and...
Well, real quick.
Go ahead.
Because you mentioned earlier that your dad retired while you were in boot camp.
Yes.
And they moved.
Yes.
While you were in boot camp.
That's right.
Did you know that was happening?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. He had done his 20, and he had gotten accepted into a doctorate program using his Vietnam era GI Bill, and in Indiana. So they were packing up the U-Haul and up to Indiana. So it's at Bloomington to Indiana University.
Oh, yeah.
So that's where I went on leave for like the next 10 years was Bloomington. But so I knew that was happening, and I had memorized their new their address. So but when you make that first phone call, there was nobody there.
Right.
They're on the road. And my drill instructors, we call them company commanders. My company commanders love that. Your folks moved while you're at boot camp. You're an orphan now.
Basic training instructors would in no way, shape, or form exploit any sort of weakness or vulnerability in the recruits.
I'd like to direct your attention to the brown hat.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So you graduated after 4 weeks?
It's 8, yeah.
Or 8,
it was
8 weeks. Okay. And then...
I think it's 12 now, but I think, it was 8 when I...
Of basic?
Yes.
Okay. And then you went to your advanced training where?
That was on Great Lakes. That's where...
Still there.
That's where Snipe Castle is, which is where all the engineering rates go.
Gotcha.
So the people that work in or around an engine room, boiler techs for when we're still using steam, everything except nukes. So anything that has to do with an engine, machinist mates, we call them the snipes because they work below deck. They're down there. No one sees them.
Snipe is in the mythical creature that totally exists.
That's right. It's an animal you hear about but never see. They come up like they're vampiric. When they come out, the sunlight. They're all vitamin D deficient.
With all due respect.
And but they said we're not making any more engine men. So remember, this is before the fiscal year. And we've got enough. We have enough engine men. So I'm like, well, it's in my contract.
Well, if you
it's in my contract, petty officer.
In July, you're at the end of the fiscal year. So yeah.
And so, and like I said, things change. People who they were counting on, we count on 25% attrition every year just by not re-upping.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, that's right. He goes, you can go back home on. You can go back on delayed. You're a sailor. You graduated boot camp. We'll put you with your recruiter. You're getting paid. You're still going to get paid. We could put you with your recruiter. And I'm like, I don't want to go work with him.
Pass.
And he says, or you can choose a new rate. And then I think the second smartest thing ever dawned on me. I said, well, what does the Navy need? I'm here to be a diver. I don't care about the engine man.
Yeah.
What does the Navy need? He goes, that's a good question. Hospital corpsman. I'm like, hospital what? He goes, corpsman. I'm like, I don't know what that is. He goes, it's like a medic. You work in a hospital, and back then, all our chiefs and drill sergeants, everybody, they were all from Vietnam,
right.
In 84.
In the 80s like that, yeah.
Yep. So this old chief, he pushes his creaky wheelchair out from his desk, behind his cube. He goes, drugs and nurses, son. Take it. Drugs and nurses. Like, that's what a hospital corpsman is about. He goes, drugs and nurses. I'm like, okay, I'll take the drugs and nurses for 1,000.
18-year-old me.
That's right. Yeah, I turned 18 in boot camp. And another good time was had by all on that day with my drill instructors.
I'll bet.
Yeah, right. But so that's how I ended up. And he said, and they have a class starting next week. We'll take you right over to the Corps School barracks and check you in, and paperwork will follow. Like, that sounds good. Get the command van, and next thing you know, I'm humping my sea bag up the steps at Hospital Corps School, and that was that.
Had you had any interest beforehand in any sort of medical field?
I had been lifeguarding and doing a lot of Red Cross stuff. I mean, I grew up in scouting, so there's that whole kind of side.
Yeah, sure.
So I wasn't a stranger to it, but I had never considered that would be a gig for me.
Right.
But all I cared about, and he said he opened up the big manual. It looked like a Sears Roebuck catalog with every single rate in the Navy. It was like a slick sheet, like a magazine page. And it had a couple pictures. It says Navy diving. And here are the source rates. And pretty much anything. A yeoman, a quartermaster, an engine man, a HM, a hospital corpsman, blah, blah. He goes, you can still go to dive school. You still be a diver as a HM. I'm like, that's good enough for me.
Yep.
That's it. That was the deal maker for me.
Anybody listening to this under the age of 40 doesn't know what a Sears Roebuck catalog is.
They don't even know what a catalog is.
That is true. That is true.
Probably the last successful catalog anybody in the audience has ever seen was probably Eastbay.
Yeah.
Or Victoria's Secret.
That's a magazine that comes in the mail. Though.
That's true.
Yeah. But no, you're right.
Okay.
That was the gig.
corpsman.
Yep. So that was 12 weeks. So now I'm seeing the winter side of the Lake Michigan shore effect, and there were plenty of days there that we didn't even have class. They're like, put on everything you own, everything in your sea bag, put it on, get on the buses, and we're shoveling.
Yep.
And you shoveled your way out of the hospital, Naval Hospital, Great Lakes, and the Corps School annex there, shoveled all that, and then the other students are doing the same thing from the other schoolhouses. And then recruits are out there. That's what they're doing. They're not in recruit training. They are on shovel. And so there's thousands of swabbies out there in their pea coats and freaking swinging them shovels. And then go over to main side. And that was pretty hoo-yah right there, man.
It's good PT, though.
Yeah, exactly. So you get on the buses, go to chow hall, get back out there.
That's how you earn that breakfast.
Buku. Yeah, that was no joke. So I graduated that, and then if you were a male at that time, you were pretty much guaranteed to go to Field Medical Service School, which is where they teach you to be a corpsman with the Marines.
With the Marines,
yeah. And those we call the few, the proud, the dead on the beach.
So please explain to those listening the relationship between the Navy corpsman and the United States Marine Corps.
Okay, so the Marines are the Department of the Navy. Mm-hmm. So we provide the department provides medical, dental, the chaplains, and I think that's it for the Marine Corps. So in every Marine unit, there is in their ROC and PO, or their table of organization, their TO, is a space for Navy corpsmen. And there are establishments with the Marines like aid stations, cash units, stuff like that actually are with that regiment, but they stay in the rear with the gear, and or they have their own forward deployable medical unit like a MASH or something.
Right.
And but there are the other ones that are actually in a unit, like in a platoon, and so you just usually you fall out with the Marines. You have the option if you want to wear the Marine uniform, you can. You just wear it with your Navy crow on your Navy rating badge, and you can't wear the dress blues though.
Right.
But you can wear up to the green uniform, the alphas.
The fatigues or the
Well, the
Duty uniform.
the coat with the coat and tie.
Yeah.
But not the choker, not the dress blues.
Right.
The what I call the nutcracker uniform.
So whereas the rest of the medical personnel may set up in their own established area forward,
Right.
the corpsman
You're with
moves
your platoon.
with the Marines.
Yeah, you're with your platoon or your squad, whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
And so there's usually, I mean, you're supposed to have one per squad. So there's the Marine Corps. Everything is 3. So there's 3 squads and a headquarters in every platoon. 3 platoons and a headquarters in every company. That's not well. There's also a weapons platoon. That's mortars, guns, and rockets, and then headquarters. So during combat, you'll see big plus ups. We'll see big plus ups all across the board. But where we're pulling people from, like Bethesda, if they went to field med school 10 years ago, they can be in a platoon now. Or we'll pull someone from the aid station and backfill that billet and pull them into, because they're
rotational.
Yeah, exactly.
So somebody at Walter Reed is like, hey, I'm here for drugs and nurses. And it's like, well, that's great. You're going to the fleet.
From the halls of Montezuma, baby.
But drugs and nurses.
Yeah, that's right. Well, remember, just like diving, I mean, I did become a diver, but not the hard hat diver I thought I was going to be. I became a combat diver with 3rd Recon Battalion.
Well, we'll get there.
Yeah,
we'll get there. So the hospital corpsman school. Mm-hmm. You had some very basic experience through scouting and lifeguarding,
CPR, lifeguarding, stuff like that. Yeah.
Did you excel at the more advanced medical training you were getting now?
Not really. I was right in the middle of my class. Some of the stuff was uniquely challenging. There was a lot of stress at that time. There was a lot of stress on how we track patients. So back then we called them nursing notes. So I don't know if you've ever seen like an old medical sitcom or something like that, where they go to the foot of the patient's bed. Chart. There's a chart back there. Every paper in that chart has a form number, and so we had to memorize all those lab requests. Like if you ever notice when you go give blood or you get a lab exam, there's the kinds of tops that are on each vial. They mean something.
Yeah.
So a purple top is serology, for example. A whole blood is a red top. There's a tiger top. There's a green top. There's things like that didn't relate to actual hands-on patient care that I didn't care about it, basically, so I wasn't very studious about it. I got counseled once or twice, but for academics.
But no more.
That's right.
Only once or twice.
I never got rolled back, which probably would have been a good idea, to be fair. But I graduated with my class on time, and I had a good crew. And we were they had like a class and a B class. So A class went like right at 6:30. So we had like 6:30 to 13:30, and then the other class picked up at 1300 and went to 1700, something like that. So that was pretty. Getting it done and over with early was nice.
Yeah. So when did you graduate the field medical school?
January. Oh, okay. Field med. I went here at Lejeune at Camp Johnson, and I graduated in March. So I left Great Lakes in January, reported here to Camp Lejeune in February, drove, and then graduated in March from here. And then that's where you have Marines instructing you as well. So they're telling you like the inside tips, and they're not on DI duty. They're more on like instructor duty.
Yeah.
So they're at a no kidding, full-on Navy Instructional Command. They're part of CNET or NETC, the Chief of Naval Education and Training. Now it's Naval Education and Training Command. So they're part of that organization on bona fide instructor duty, so they get that credit. But they're not. So they're PTing you. They're the Marine Corps way, So you get used to listening to the way you call cadence and the way the Marines. So they're there to kind of indoctrinate you culturally.
Yeah. Well, they're getting you ready.
The terms, yeah, exactly. And then the corpsmen are teaching the medicine. And back then it was, and I'll give you a great example of how things have changed to today. You're all fairly current, much more current than I am. But when would you ever carry a tourniquet with you?
All the time.
When I was in Iraq and Afghanistan, everybody carried their own tourniquet.
Why would you not? Exactly.
Yeah.
It's in your IFAC, yeah.
Back in the day, tourniquet was certain amputation, and so that's where that whole mark their forehead with the T in time, right? So that you knew what time that tourniquet went on.
Yeah.
And so tourniquet was last resort. And now it's when in doubt, whip it out, right?
Yeah, it's very different.
Yes.
Yeah.
So back then it was all Vietnam-era equipment, Vietnam-era doctrine.
But it was the time, too.
That's right.
That response time was so much slower back then. That choice of using that tourniquet was much more severe than it is now.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all the people you said that most of the males went to field medical school.
That's true, yeah.
Were they? I mean, if you went to the field medical school, were you going to be a corpsman for the Marines, or was it just to kind of get certified?
It was to get that,
so they could pull you back anytime they want.
Remember when they go through, and you probably know this, being a hat, until they graduate their actual MOS producing school, or for us it's a NEC. They're still on recruiting dollars.
Yeah.
And they're not on operational dollars until they finish that one.
Yeah.
So there's a money difference as well as a practical difference of where they are, how do you get them,
Yep.
So having that programmed into from another pot of money is important. So as far as your follow-on orders, nobody went straight to the Fleet Marine Force back then. So I went to Naval Hospital Beaufort, South Carolina.
Yep.
Which was beautiful. I loved it there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just like being back home in Fort Walton Beach. Yeah, it was super nice. But I mean, even my instructors didn't know where it was. They're like McMullen when they're calling out orders. And someone went to Adak, Alaska. Someone went to, at that time we were still running a naval hospital in Iceland, in Keflavik, Iceland. So some folks are getting overseas, jobs, and they're like, McMullen, it's Beaufort, South Carolina. Where's that? Do you know where that is? And, anybody? And someone goes, I think it's near Hilton Head. It's north of Charleston, but south of Camp Lejeune. And
that's about right.
Yeah. I mean, so I ended up going there for 2 years. And then I decided I was going to go to SEAL training at that time.
At Beaufort, were you were you disappointed that you didn't get an overseas assignment? Or maybe an assignment in Florida? Or
yeah, a little bit. Because how you fill out your wish list, your dream sheet.
Because in the early 80s, when you came in, Al Gore's internet was not up and running.
That's true. That's true.
So, I mean, like a lot of these places, you couldn't just look them up on a computer.
That's right. So I didn't know. Trying to put myself back into that. I was pretty excited just to be done with training and get to work. Well,
at that point, you had been in training for 9 months?
Yeah, about 9 months. Yeah, since July. So July to March.
Yeah.
Oof. So, and you know how it gets, when you're just always under someone's thumb. It's not like if you go to a school and you're from the fleet.
Yeah.
They're cool. They know you're going back to the fleet with the skill that they provided. Like I went back to my unit. I came here this is really dating myself. I went to Free Fall JM here at Bragg. It wasn't at Yuma where it is now. So they know that you're going back to your unit with the skills that they're going to impart. That they're going to check you off on. When you're a boot, they're not thinking that way. You know, they think half of it is, and I know this from instructor duty, you know, half of it is keep them under your thumb so they don't screw up out in town. You know, keep them busy.
Right. Idle hands and all that.
Too busy to, right. And like in the Navy, like you couldn't even wear civilian clothes for about, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks, even though you were out of boot camp.
Yeah.
You had to go everywhere. You had to, in uniform. You had to march everywhere. If you were marching to chow with your buddies, you better be marching. You know.
They make you do buddy teams and everything too.
Yeah. There's a reason for that.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. But,
so when you showed up at Buford, drugs and nurses, were they in abundance?
the nurses were, but the drugs not so much, man. I mean,
it's okay. I mean, if you're gonna go on one side.
Well, I will say back then, like I said, everyone was from Vietnam. They weren't really concerned with weed or drugs at all. I mean, I think we piss tested about every other month, maybe every 3 months, and again, random. Like if your Social Security ended in 2 or a 6, you're on
the 10%ers.
Yeah. So your general. Because all that costs money, so your command pay, is required to do this much, and if they want to do more, they need to do more.
Yeah,
and you take a haircut for it.
And with the urinalysis back then, they had to be very specific in what they were testing you for.
That's exactly right.
So, yeah,
it wasn't just the big 5 like we do now.
Yeah,
where it's a random. Now it's literally a mechanized process.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you could pour all that piss into a machine and probably identify you genetically and what you're on, But yeah, so there was a lot of a lot of weed going on in my barracks, at least, And we had 2 barracks. One was co-ed, one was all male. I was in the all male, and there was plenty of blue smoke coming out of those rooms, man. So. I never got a taste for it, even growing up in school. If I even try a Marlboro Light, I may get a couple puffs, but then my chest hurts for 2 days afterwards. So I was like, yeah, probably if you're gonna be a diver and keep running and swimming like you are, it's probably not. Don't smoke, So, but my first assignment was in the family practice clinic. So that's general. Just think about taking your kids to the doctor when they were between 3 months and 10 years. You know, so that's kind of
shots.
That's what
ear,
I did.
Nose, and throat.
Yep. All that.
Ear infections.
You start out by checking patients in, and there's forms. So you're doing form work. Then you kind of graduate to where you're a TPR tech. So that's vital signs. Temperature, pulse, respiration, height, weight, and that goes into, that's charted. So the doctor has that, and then maybe helping them fill out a questionnaire about why they're there today. Just like today, if you go in and check in on the iPad at a urgent care, it will say, what are you here for? Have you experienced any COVID-type symptoms in the last 30 days? Have you had unprotected sex with a strange partner in the last 30 days?
Define strange.
Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that. Have you been paid for sex lately? Have you paid for sex lately? Have you shared?
This is very personal.
I know, right?
Have you shared needles? By the way, I have forms I've brought for you guys.
You're not expecting us to fill those out.
Drugs and nurses, baby. Of course. So I did that, and that was not fulfilling. And really, when you're there's nothing fun about holding a baby for a spinal tap. That's bogus. And I wasn't even a dad. I was 18. I mean, this is highly bogus to me.
Yeah.
So they put me down in command education and training, which is down in the basement, where that's where the drugs were. Where the pharmacy went to get the drugs, and that's under lock and key. I still never saw the drugs. And then and the morgue was down there. So the basement was like a cave. It was pretty eerie down there and a little dark. And
so he'd become a snipe.
Yeah, I went to sniping for the hospital, but I ran like the CPR certification. As an American Heart as instructor, and you have to maintain those calls. So we had to track all that. If somebody wanted to, it was like the kid who knew how to run the projector back in school, or in your case, work the VCR. You know, and
I was that kid.
Yep, there you go. So I had to. If somebody was teaching a class, I had to like load up the big deck VCR that we had back then.
I remember.
And the TV, and haul it up to wherever they were gonna.
I was an AV kid.
Yep, there you go. That and all the quals that you're supposed to have, like the doctors have their quals, they have to do their ACLS, their PEDS, all that stuff. So we had to track all that. So, and I was working for 2 senior guys, 2 E6s, first class petty officers, and then we got a chief. So that was really cool. So then I started getting basically be a saltier E3 because I'm learning I'm in direct contact with this.
It's osmosis.
That's right.
It was mentorship.
And I learned how the most important Navy skill you can ever have is make coffee. Be the first one in and get that coffee better be going it better be ready when the chief comes in.
Nice.
Or else you're going to be having
be a rough
bad day, man. Yep.
So you were there for 2 years.
Yeah.
And, just under a year of training. Was being a diver still the goal? Were
yes.
you still were you still trying to like train for it or seek out more information, or were you still like working towards it?
Yeah. So I had not to get a follow-on, what we call a C school. So hospital corps school, HMA school is your basic hospital corps school. Let's say you want to be a lab tech or X-ray tech. That's called a C, as in Charlie, follow-on school for advanced medical training. Something like X-ray tech, that's a year long. You would have to, first you had to maintain a 90 average coming out of your A school, which I did not have. And you had to request it. And so that's going to go to the needs of that rate of, so they, obviously you can only go be an X-ray tech where they take X-rays, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a medical facility, a hard medical facility, probably not a clinic, probably a hospital, or a big clinic, like the Makalapa Gate Pearl Harbor, mm-hmm. The Makalapa Gate Clinic. That's what I would call it. A good sized clinic. They have X-rays in there too. So you could, but you had to go somewhere where they actually take X-rays.
Yes, there has to be a need for it for you to get the slot, and then there has to be a place for you to go.
That's right.
So, okay.
So even if I had maintained my GPA, and they would have just looked at the fleet diving capability and said, we don't take E3s. You got to be an HM3, which is an E4, to apply, which is probably would have been the case. But at any rate, I wasn't eligible for follow-ons for a C school. So my next stop was the Marine Corps. And the hospital was great. Our command master chief was this, I think he was a Korean War guy, Korean War, Vietnam, and was retiring shortly. But I'll never forget him because he smoked out of like a Lucille Ball cigarette holder.
Yeah, the stems.
Yeah, and
Dan does that.
And he would hold court. Like he would get all the E3s that were at the All Ranks Club that night, and that was right by my barracks. Mm-hmm. So you could go over there, and they could serve you the 3-2 beer back then, because South Carolina was 21. But you could get, if you were 18 or 19, you could get a near beer. Mm-hmm. And you could drink as much of that as you want. But usually you just preloaded in the barracks with one of your buddies that went and brought back stuff from the liquor store or whatever.
That doesn't happen anymore.
I know.
Hey,
I know.
How could you? How could you?
It's unheard of. So, but he would hold court with the various ranks, and hey, McMullen, get a couple buddies and come over here and see me right away, Master Chief. Bring a pitcher, and he'd sit there. So what's going on? And he was very engaged with the enlisted ranks at all levels. So that kind of started growing my faith in the establishment that, even this Master Chief gives a damn, about, and he's as high as you can get in the enlisted ranks, and he still cares about us at happy hour on Friday night.
Yeah.
When he's, so I was impressed by that.
Yeah, that's a good thing for a young service member to see.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas in the Marine Corps, if you even see a sergeant major, you better pull your cover down to disguise yourself, change the way you walk.
The gray man.
Probably look like you are moving somewhere with a purpose.
And you had better know the greeting of the day.
In a different direction.
What are you, the weatherman now?
Yeah, exactly.
So, you got sent to the fleet?
Yeah. So,
where?
Well, first I thought I would go be a SEAL.
Oh yeah.
So I went to Coronado. I went through BUDS, and I didn't go through BUDS. I went to BUDS.
As an E3?
No. Yes, as an E3.
Oh. Okay.
And yeah, I did not. That didn't work out. I didn't graduate. I went. I had a near drowning. And they're like, you can drop and come back, or we'll let you go. I'm like, I think I'll go. So when you drop out of a school, you are made available for fleet-wide assignment immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So it could have been the next thing smoking out of the shipyard San Diego. Yeah, it could have been a destroyer. It could have been, And he's like, hey, I got Marines in Okinawa.
Okie.
I got Marines in Hawaii. And I'm like, wait, did you just say Marines in Hawaii? He goes, yeah, 3rd Marine Regiment. It's infantry. I'm like, Hawaii, though? Like Don Ho, aloha.
Yep, that's the one.
I'm like, he goes,
I've seen Hawaii 5-0.
Yep. He goes, that's it. And I'm like, I'll do that. He's like, right on, I'll pencil you in. And let's call the detailer right now. This is the career counselor right there, Buds. He goes, oh, he calls him up. He says, yep, I got this one for that slot. He goes, what? Oh, hold on. It's a mandatory 4-year tour, and you don't have enough time. You're going to have to extend your current enlistment. You know how they get
That's
you.
how they get you.
Yes.
That's how they get you.
That's right.
Hook, line, und sinker.
Yep.
How long was your original enlistment?
4 years.
4 years.
Yep.
And so you're at 3.
Essentially.
You're definitely in your window.
High 2,
So,
early 3, yeah.
Yeah, you're in your window.
He goes, yeah, so you're going to have to extend for like 22 months or something like that to meet your 4, to add on, because this is a 4-year tour. I'm like, here it goes. This is where the big blue weenie begins.
And it begins.
You guys have one of those too?
That's right.
It's a different color, though.
So, that's how I found myself in Hawaii with 3rd Marine Regiment, which there's an artillery regiment there, or artillery battery, and everything is a detachment from Oki. 3rd Marine Division is on Okinawa. So we had like the not detachments, like the Alpha companies, Alpha batteries, Alpha, and then all Bravo, Charlie, Delta was all on Oki. So we had an artillery battery, a motor T. We had Amtracs, which is the amphibious landing vehicle, not tanks. We had infantry regiment, which is third Marines. So that's three battalions for first, second, and third. So it's 1, 3, 2, 3, and 3, 3. And then they basically said, don't unpack your stuff. You know, you're going back to mainland with Amtracs as a platoon corpsman, because their real corpsman isn't here, or he's out on Molokai with the one platoon. This platoon's going to 29 Palms to do this big combined armed exercise, or CAX, at 29 Palms, which is a huge event. Mm-hmm. It's impressive out there, and everything's live fire in all directions. It's insane, and and that was nice because you're riding, not walking, and I'm learning the vehicle. You learn how to fix a track, you learn how to check fluids on everything, you learn what a drive, what a final drive is. You just learn everything about the vehicle, and you got to get checked off at every station. So I got to drive it, got to shoot the 50 out of it, got to, run the 3 vehicles. And yeah, so that was a great time. That was like a month, maybe 5 weeks. And then I came back and they said, don't unpack your stuff. You're going over to 1-3. And so I go to the 1-3 BAS, and they go, okay, here's how it works here in 1-3. You're going to go with a platoon.
That's a battalion aid station?
Yes.
Okay.
The battalion aid station. That's like the clinic, but it's attached to that battalion.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to go with a platoon, a line platoon, which is a rifle platoon, or the weapons company, which is the big guns. That's the 81 millimeter mortars.
Oh, those aren't the big ones.
Those were the big ones then. That's what the Marine Corps calls the big ones.
Oh, fair enough.
It's 81s, the Dragons, which is a big wire-guided shot, and the TOWs, another wire-guided thing. No, I'm sorry. It was 81s, 50s, and Dragons. TOWs was a whole different, it was its own unit. So you're either going to go with them, and then you're going to do one deployment to Oki, so it's 6 months out to Oki. Then you come back for those listening. That's Okinawa. Don't call them Japanese because they're not.
They don't care for that.
They don't care for that at all. That's like calling a Scottish person Northern English
or a Puerto Rican a Mexican.
That's right. So they so you're 6 months in Oki, 12 months back on Oahu. 6 months out, 12 months back. So while you're out, 2-3 and 3-3 are back. 2-3 reloads you cross deck, and those are all flyaways. You fly to Oki, and on a charter airplane, and then which is just a painted white TWA flight or whatever it was back then. And then
you dated yourself with the TWA again.
I know. I just thought of that too. Howard Hughes.
He was flipping through the Sears Roebuck catalog on the TWA.
And then, then we, so that's what I did. They put me in Alpha Company, which was the Hilo Assault Company, which was nice for a helicopter ride in the infantry, and back then it was all 46s.
Yeah.
And, which we don't fly anymore. But generally, as you know, you just walk everywhere. There's, getting air is just as difficult as finding a Sears Roebuck catalog, to order that air from, So that's what I did. I went. You start in a training mode. You're in your platoon. So what you do is you PT with your platoon. You run over to the BAS with whoever you have for patients. Mm-hmm. You take them over, you see them for sick call in the battalion aid station, and then you go back to your platoon and you do the training of the day.
Yeah, once the aid station hours are over.
Yeah, once sick call's done, you go back to your platoon, and if there's nobody, you don't have to go to the BAS, and you just run over there, which was right down. It's cool. In Infantry Row, there's all these covered walkways because it rains like 3 times a day on the windward side of Oahu. So you just got to hut down the covered walkway down to the aid station and say, hey, I got no patients, and run back. And so then you're checked in with medical for the day. They may ask you to stay if they got, like Charlie Company was really heavy that day. Hey, can you stay and help the Charlie Company corner because they're smoked right now. Yeah. Something like that. But usually you're with your platoon day in, day out.
Yeah.
When you were on Oahu, at any point did you ever have to shovel snow?
I never shoveled snow on Oahu.
Was because you had spent your first couple of years there at a hospital, be it in the basement of the hospital, but in the hospital, was it a nice change of pace to actually be with the grunts and riding around in vehicles and helicopters and shooting 50 cals and tripping over dragon cables?
One thing I skipped about the hospital is that we had a unique advantage at that hospital in that we had Marine Corps Recruit Depot, Parris Island. We had MCRD right there. So you frequently went out to support them. Like I was at the pool full time with the weapons platoon drill instructors. So I worked at that BAS when new recruits come in every week. You go over and you learn how to do all your shots. And back then, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but we had a gun, an air-powered gun that was like that gave you
the peanut butter shot.
Yeah, no. The peanut butter shot's still in the ass. That's that's with a steel syringe. You know, that's no joke. That's the gamma glob.
Yeah.
Immune
times.
purified globulin.
Good times.
And then so you got to basically draw blood, do the PPD shot in the forearm, you know, the PPD test, intramuscular shot, subcutaneous shots. So you got a lot of corpsman skills, you know, and a lot of it at one time. So
there's a difference between, you know, getting that experience through, I guess, through peripheral exercises like that versus being actually embedded with
exactly
the guys.
Yep. So when I went to, you know, when it was shot day, you know, I just brought him back to my platoon area, and I said, hey, I'm going over to the BAS right now. There's 28 of us. I'm getting 28 freaking sets of everything. And right away you see the guys who are scared of needles, like rolling back toward the back of the line. I'm like, come on up, guys, get it over with. Because, you know, and if you need to, freaking sit on the rack right there and we'll freaking, you know.
I realize that it's been quite some time. What if you guesstimate, what was the fainting ratio?
Ooh. It hasn't
if you had 20 guys.
It has been long enough for that. It's at least 15, 20%. Out of 20 guys, 2 to 4.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. You got to
Sounds about right.
Sit them down. Worse is like blood draw day. When we started having this magical thing called HTLV3, which is the forerunner to HIV, and started having to draw blood. Same thing. I had to like take all that equipment over to my platoon area, and I'm like, all right, sisters, you know who you are. Come up here, sit. I got a school desk for you. Sit right here on the desk, put your arm out, and hold your brother's hand. You know?
Somebody's holding there with the pillow.
Yes, exactly. The first guy I actually had to sew up in their face was a corporal. Like, I'll never forget him. He was my roommate afterwards, Corporal Cecil. Great guy, good Marine, and I shot him right in the deltoid with a good IM stick, intramuscular stick. I forget what it was. It was an immunization of it was like before we're going to Oki, so it was either yellow fever, plague, or something like that requires IM.
Japanese encephalitis.
JEV. Yep. So I had to stick him, and as soon as he's like, "Doc, I don't," yeah, bam, and he hit the deck just like that and split his chin.
Oof.
All the way like that. And I had sewn up plenty of other body parts, but never on the face, you know. Even though it's still chinny chin chin.
Chins are tough.
It's curved surface. There's whiskers there no matter what.
Yeah.
And because, you know, your platoon sergeant doesn't look under your face, you know. Yeah. Yeah, so he cracked that chin.
Facial wounds bleed a lot.
Oh, dude.
A lot.
Mega. You know, and I had to check his teeth and tongue while he was 9-8, you know, to make sure. I'm surprised he didn't crush some teeth on that. But he didn't, so that's good. And then that's when I realized the value of, you know, stealing a mat from the gym. You know, if we're going to have a lineup, let's go get a mat from the gym and roll it out here.
Get ahead of it.
Go through.
I'm not about to make more work for myself.
That's right. Exactly.
Get ahead of it.
Or steal a school desk from the classroom on base somewhere, you know, just have them sit down there. But so that's the kind of, you know, medicine. That's when you get used to being your actual platoon medic. Like, these are your guys. You know what all the other platoon medics are doing. There's a company corpsman who's in charge. Usually he's a third-class petty officer, so he's an E4.
Yeah.
And he's in headquarters or weapons. And so
you're senior medic for the company.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. And then you're running 3 E3s. And you help the CO write their evals, their enlisted evaluation reports and stuff like that. So you've got a little admin duty as a senior corpsman of a company. And that's kind of how you get into your service with the Marines right there. Is you realize these platoon members, you have a place on the firing line, you have a place in the medical line, you have a place in the squad bay or in the barracks. You've got, quals they expect you to keep up. They've got equipment you expect them to carry, at IV bag got every couple guys, so that's when you start to learn how it all comes together.
Yeah.
And then as you go through all these training exercises together, again, your skill set starts to grow, and you realize, what part of where you start to fit in with your squad, your platoon. Then you realize where you fit in the company, where your company fits into the battalion, where the battalion fits into the regiment, and how all these other assets, like the Marine Air Ground Task Force, start to come together as a global force for good. When you deploy, it's like
it helps you put the picture together.
Exactly, and that's kind of how it starts, is in your platoon.
Yeah,
and when you take out a Marine Air Ground Task, a MAGTAF, that colonel is a world superpower, really. And you're on a ship that can go anywhere. Well, it's a amphib task group, or amphibious readiness group, the ARG. And with the ship components and the Marines on board, that whole thing exists just to land about 1,200 party crashers.
Crashers
on a foreign soil.
Yeah, that's good.
So, excuse me. So learning your place, small. They really feed it to you in small chunks, and then it just grows and grows and grows.
Yeah.
Every deployment you start to realize that you're part of something bigger, and that's kind of how that goes. Yeah.
We'll take a break here in a second, but when you got attached to the fleet, did you say, "Hey, I'm going to sew my Navy rank on a Marine uniform"?
Never. No.
It's Navy all the way. Huh?
Yep. I was like, I went to boot camp to be a real Boy Scout. You guys are Department of the Navy. And they were always leaning on me because I was a great PTer. I was a leader, which kind of sucks because when things come up like Super Squad, that's advanced. That's a competition squad where you're supposed to be going. You compete within your battalion. You compete within your regiment. You compete within the division.
Yeah.
And then, much like a marksmanship badge or something, there's a separate medal for that. It's a qual badge, not a achievement badge, not a medal, not like a personal decoration.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty prestigious. But who do they want? They want the guy who won't put on the Marine uniform. They want the guy who makes himself conspicuous by PTing, by wearing his uniform sharp, by telling you what the Navy uniform is supposed to look like, and why my hair standards are different than yours, and et cetera. So, you're only going to push that so far, Right. In a platoon of Marines, I'm not going to wear a Beatles-level haircut just because I can, or a Fu Manchu just because I can, But let's say I do,
But it doesn't mean that you were going to make things harder on yourself by complying to a different set of standards.
Well, that's just a whole nother sea bag to maintain.
Yeah.
And a whole nother set of uniform regs you got to know.
Yeah.
And, that wasn't going to be for me. Ever.
All right. Let's go ahead and take a break.
All right.
So you're in Hawaii.
Yep.
You had to extend or re-enlist
Correct.
in order to fulfill that assignment because, of course, you did.
It was a minimum 36. I said 48. I did do 4 years there, but another way they get you is to incentivize you to stay. So there's an option to extend out there, and I really wanted to get into the recon unit there. So I had passed the what we call the NDOC, which is like selection, and only back then it was basically like a weekend of PT, and if you were and ruck in, there's some maybe 10-question tests every other mile or so to fill out or stuff like that. And then navigating, PT, and swimming, a lot of swimming. And everything's in camis, of course. It started with your PFT, which had to be a first class or better. So out of a 300, you had to be like a 220 or a 230, something like that was a first class PFT. But you really wanted to be maxing it out as best you could. The back-to-back obstacle course, that's the only time you were in PT gear was for the physical fitness test. Then then it was camis, and if you got rashes, if you got blisters, it was boots and utes the whole time. Yeah. So then you could, if you passed all that and your command would let you go, you're still in the 3rd Marine Regiment, so it's not like a PCS orders or nothing. It's like an inter-brigade orders or something. A lateral move. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
And so they're like, well, after this deployment, you're going back to the mainland if you decide to stay in, because otherwise your hitch is up. You can just get out here, or what are you going to do? So I extended again. They had this overseas extension incentive program, and where they would give you some basket leave and a plane ticket back to the nearest port of entry, which would be LAX, round trip tickets and 15 days of basket leave for you to do whatever you wanted, or just 30 days basket leave, or a financial incentive like $80 a month for the whole length of your extension. So $80 incentive bonus, which in the 80s, and you're going to Waikiki all the time like I did with my battle buddies, of course. $80 went a long way, Yeah. So I did that after my second float. So the first one I did was in a platoon. The second one I did was the company corpsman or senior corpsman. I was in weapons and kind of reported to headquarters. So I had to tell them how, report to the XO, who's like a first lieutenant. CO is a captain, the company commander is a captain. And I still talk to that XO to this day. And he's a fantastic friend and mentor. And he, so when I said, hey, I took the NDOC, and can you cut me loose over to Recon? He goes, no, you owe me another deployment, brother. I'm like, you're crazy. He goes, listen, that's another year. He goes, listen, you owe me the deployment, whether we're cool with it or not between us. I'd like for it to be cool between us, but if it's not, you're still doing the deployment, with Alpha Company. And so he goes, but when we get back, I'll go over to Recon Battalion. I'll take the XO out to lunch or over to the O Club or do what we got to do, and you'll get into Recon. And that was that. That's exactly what happened. We got back from leave. He said, I already went and packed your stuff. All you got to do is haul it over Recon Company area. Nice. They know you're coming.
That was after you extended.
After I took the second deployment.
Yeah.
And then I extended.
And then
so I could do my So that was what that was. It was a little more than a year, but So that's kind of how you life in the grunts as a Marine or Marine corpsman kind of progresses. You start getting into a rotating unit quickly.
Yeah.
And so you're there with generally everybody there is a PFC or E2, and on up to a first sergeant, a company first shirt. We had a battalion sergeant major, but we didn't have a company sergeant majors. So you had a company gunny, a company first sergeant, and then an XO and a CO in headquarters, and then with the clerks and the armorers and those folks were all in headquarters.
How were things different in the recon detachment? Because you have to go through a selection process to get in there,
right?
So obviously they want better
quality
guys.
You had to have, generally speaking, you had to have done at least one deployment in a grunt platoon. You had to have a command recommendation, preferably two. We really want you to have a couple deployments. And when I got on the cadre, and was in that selection process, sometimes we'd have to make exceptions and then bring them up to speed. Like if we were short on communicators, on radio, on RTOs, you know, you couldn't be choosy.
Yeah,
you
right.
know, you got to take what
you have to fill the need.
Yeah, that's right. And the same could be said for corpsmen, maybe, you know. But generally speaking, we wanted you to have at least one, preferably two deployments in 3rd Marine Regiment before you went over to Alpha Company, 3rd Recon Battalion. And then, so you're dealing with more experienced people. Generally, you're all NCOs, the corporals and above. Corporals are generally team leaders, sergeants generally team leaders, and then you start breaking into your 6-man recon teams there. And so even though you're in a same platoon structure, it's really more about the platoon supporting that 6-man recon team who's out on a mission. And so the way we divvied it up was first platoon would support 1-3, second platoon would support 2-3, and third platoon would support 3-3. And so you're very much part of 3rd Marine Regiment, and so you know who you're supporting, who your customers are. So when you're sending back information that's supposed to be turned into intelligence for the battalion commanders to make actionable decisions, or, you know, provide them actionable intelligence so they can make decisions. Whether you're swimming a lane, which is making sure there's no obstacles to an amphibious landing, for example.
Yep.
And swimming those lanes, scouting the area, making sure there is no minefield, if there's something like that. We also had engineers too in 3rd Marines, so those guys do that. But we would have this whole brief-ins like with those guys. Preferably, it didn't always happen. But
how did your role as the medic, as the corpsman,
it got blurrier and blurrier, to be fair, because there's so much more. There's so many more skill sets involved that you are expected to be at the top of your game on, and so you start load sharing a lot, you know. And so, everyone knew that I was a great swimmer, and that I could pull a ruck just as fast as or faster than most people. I could run pretty well. I could carry a lot. One thing I had going for me is being in the combat arms trade per se, is I had a good back and good feet. I rarely got blisters. I had a system of foot care that rarely failed. And if it did, I had the countermeasures. I had the good old tincture of benzoin and moleskin, so any infantry corpsman who's worth his salt can basically build a new pair of feet out of moleskin and scissors in about 10 minutes, so
just make moleskin socks.
That's right. Yeah. Pretty much. That's not uncommon. The trick is to get all the you got to brush the moleskin so the hairs all go one way in the same direction. But yeah, so it gets blurrier and blurrier as your specific roles. Obviously we have the traditional roles. There's a rifleman, there's a grenadier, there's a scout. But really everybody does everything. So everybody trains to do everyone else's job as well. Yeah. So when it came to that level of medicine, it was on me to get those Marines spun up. I knew I rarely got sewed up by another corpsman. It was usually a Marine who I had trained, start them on oranges, get them up to pig's feet, which I go out to the store and buy.
Go to the Piggly Wiggly.
Yes, exactly. Go out in town, get some pig's feet, and we start cutting those. And you can make a pig's foot can train a lot of Marines. And the skin is nice and thick, so you can see how you will bend needles. and this is how you break out a new pack and how to keep it sterile, and so even coming, talking about calling for a medevac. If I'm going to call for a 9-line, someone else can call for a medevac, or vice versa. So it
takes pressure off you.
It does.
Yeah.
It spread loads. Pressure's there, but everyone else, you have support, and everyone else is there to help. So
yeah. What year was it when you went to the recon detachment?
88.
88. You'd been in Hawaii for
2 years.
2 years at that point? And you extended for how long?
1 year. So it was a 3-year tour. I extended for 2. So I did 2 and change in the infantry, like maybe 25 months, and then the rest, and then another 2 years in recon battalion.
Did you deploy out of the recon battalion?
No. We didn't. We didn't do the Oki floats. What we did is, like, if they were going to 29 Palms for that CAX, because let me back it up. We didn't deploy to Oki with them because the rest of 3rd Recon Battalion is on Okinawa.
Yeah.
So we're Alpha Company. Bravo, Charlie, and Delta are all on Oki already. That's where they're resident there.
Yeah.
So they're covering the South Pacific already. Mm-hmm. So they have their recon asset as soon as they're on island. So we would travel with those battalions to the combined arm exercises at 29 Palms. So I've done the CAX exercise probably 6 or 7 times. And same thing with Bridgeport, the Coronado at landing package, the advanced landing packages or amphib landing packages. The live fire on Kolave, which is like Diego Garcia, where you can, not Diego Garcia, what's the, Vieques Island down in PR.
So there's not much in Diego.
Yeah. No, I meant for live fire training island, where all we do is shoot up that island.
Yep.
And make jobs for future EOD techs.
Yeah.
And so Koalavi is one of the uninhabited islands where we do, the Navy and Marines just do a ton of live
bombardment.
Fire. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And then, so we were doing all those, and all those are basically like a month long. So you're still off island for a solid 6 to 8 months out of the year anyway, which is nice because then you come back, you want to go hit Waikiki, you got a little money in the bank. It's not like like now, like pull up my Amazon app and go shopping. So
yeah.
You got a couple months pay in the bank, and now you're good in Waikiki for a couple months.
Go get in trouble for a couple nights.
That's right. The bars are open till 4.
Yeah. So when did you leave Hawaii?
I left in 1990, and I went straight to First Force Recon Company at Camp Pendleton. And so the difference between Recon Battalion and Force Reconnaissance is Recon Battalion supports a regiment and they stay. We do reconnaissance up to the forward edge battle area, the FIBA. So we go up to the FIBA, where Force Recon supports a division or a Marine landing force. That's hence the term Force Reconnaissance. We are reconnaissance for the whole landing force. And we'll go up to traditional doctrine would say up to 100 miles, statute miles behind the FIBA. So usually it involves babysitting targets, identifying, calling back at some point in time. The goal is for that target to be, or those things that you identify on your reconnaissance missions, that those items get racked and stacked and submitted to some form of national command authority, where they are then racked and stacked, prioritized for leave it alone, all the way to must disappear now.
Yeah, I don't know if they're back then. I don't know if they were calling it this, but now that's what we call the targeting process.
Exactly.
I mean, it's
that's exactly what it is.
Okay. Yeah.
You were serving with the Marines,
yeah,
but you are a Navy corpsman.
That's correct.
When you went to Force Recon, was that something that you worked for?
Yeah.
Was it somewhere where you were assigned, or were was the Navy ready to pull you back to another hospital?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, they wanted me just to stay on the island because I'm single. So maintaining me on the island as a single swab cost them very little. Mm-hmm. But except by this time I made E5 on the island. So, now if I do move, I have weight that they have to move with me, right? Yeah. They have household goods or whatever. It's just not me in a sea bag anymore. So yeah. I was still living in the barracks, eating in the chow hall at that time.
Yeah.
So I didn't have very much, but it's not like I had a family. So they would have loved if I had just said, hey, I'll just go to the clinic on Kaneohe. I'll just go to the clinic on K-Bay, or I'll go to the clinic down at Pearl Harbor, or I'll take a ship out of Pearl. But by then I was up for shore duty anyway, because the Navy has what we call a seashore rotation. So you're supposed to do this much amount of time in a deployable unit, which that's sea duty. And then your shore duty is when you're at a hard facility, like instructor duty at a hospital clinic if you're a corpsman or dentist. Doctors, nurses, same thing. They have seashore rotations.
Yeah.
I still had not seen the drugs by this point.
Lots of nurses, though.
Seen some nurses, but not in the Marine, not in the regiment. Usually, if I had to haul one of my guys to the clinic, got something weird out in town, then
that happens.
It does. I used to tell my guys, don't join the 4-H club. If you're a member of the 4-H club, you're a member for life. That's hepatitis, HIV, human papillomavirus. That's the warts, and what's the other one? Hepatitis, HIV, HPV. It'll come to me.
No.
But anyway, you join the 4-H club. Oh, herpes simplex virus.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I should have known.
HSV, HIV, HPV, and the warts.
Which you probably could get at it at 4-H.
Hepatitis, yeah. You can roll the dice. But, So I wasn't interested in shore duty. I was still physically sound. I hadn't really banged myself up too bad. And so I really wanted to get my MOS for recon, which is 8492 at that time. It's called Special Operations Technician, or a SOT tech. So I really wanted that, really wanted to get that NEC because it would keep me with the Marines. There's only one way to stay with the Marines, and that's if you have that NEC. I wasn't interested in clinic or hospital duty. I seen the drugs and nurses, wasn't impressed. And so I was like, nah, I want to stay in the gun club. And so I knew that at the Force Recon unit at 1st Force there on Pendleton, or 2nd Force at Lejeune, that they had their corpsmen were all SOT techs. Mm-hmm. And they had all started in Recon Battalion. Like by that time I'd been down to dive school, so I did get to go to dive school, just not the wrench turning torch burning school that I thought I would do. Is what you think is going to happen, is what the Navy says is going to happen, right?
Right.
We all know that.
But you wrote it in stone at 17 and a half years old.
That's right. I know it. So then when I got to Pendleton, I had to take that in doc, and same thing, it's just freaking running, swimming, humping.
So when you went to Pendleton, it was for another selection.
Force Recon has its own selection.
It was not. You were not going there with an assignment in hand.
No, I had an assignment in hand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I had an assignment to the division surgeon's office at Camp Pendleton.
Yeah.
So, or Divvy Docs is what we would call it. So I was assigned to Divvy Docs, and then one of my Marines who had come there from Hawaii, he came and grabbed me down at San Diego Airport and just took me up to the company, and he said, hey, just crash here on Monday morning. The other corpsman and our company chief, he wasn't a chief, but he was the boss. He was the first class. Kurt Varner is his name, great guy, really helped me out. We'll take you to go see him, and then, you can talk to him. And that's exactly what happened. He knew I was coming, and he snatched me up, pulled me over to, we got in his car, we drove over to division surgeon's office, He says, give me the orders. And he's got my service jacket and my health and dental just left there at the company aid station. And then he says, hey, I got a guy here. He's assigned to Division Surgeon's office. We're down 3 guys. I'm going to snatch him up. He's coming from Recon Battalion. He's already a diver. We're going to send him to jump school, get him his MOS, and that'll be that. And they're like, okay.
Nice and easy.
That was it. And so came down and he goes, you got to pass that in, doc, dude. I'm like, don't worry, Kurt. I won't make you look bad, dude. And so that's what happened the next month. Then he took me around, met everybody, Sergeant Major, CO, XO, all the S shops,
yeah,
the Paraloft, the dive locker, and that was a couple-day evolution. And then he's like, all right, you're manning the desk until. So I was there working. It was a trailer. We had all modular headquarters offices. So the company head shed. In fact, my hooch was right in shared the same wall with the sergeant major's office. So if you went over into the corner of our supply room, you could hear what the sergeant major was saying, and come back. Hey, Ray. Yeah.
He's coming.
He's coming.
He's on his way.
Click. And, so yeah, that was so that's what I did. I kind of went back to basically being a sit call guy, because there was no platoon for me yet. They ran 3 full platoons at one time, maybe 4, and then one was always in formation. So as these guys, and when we put together a platoon in the Force Company, it's a 3-year tour. Everybody's got to be within 6 months, EAS or PCS or getting out, whatever. So your departure date is all within 3 to 6 months of each other, so that the same 22 to 26 guys are all together all the time. And
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So then I took the NDOC, went off to jump school. I had already gone to the hyperbaric chamber school when I was in Hawaii. That's on Coronado. And that's where you learn to press people in the chamber, become a chamber operator, stuff like that, hyperbaric chamber operator.
Explain to everybody what that is and what it's used for.
So for diving, if you're going to be a diving medic of any kind, whether it is deep sea or, in my case, a more tactical use of diving, there are various injuries that can occur. They can occur just by breathing gas. There's injuries from breathing gas, period. There's and those are usually they end in osis, like things where oxygen hurts you. Or
right.
Then there's pressure related injuries. That's where you could pop a lung. You could break alveoli within your lungs, sending a cascade of microscopic
bubbles
right? of air or oxygen or whatever you're breathing up through your jugs, up through your carotids into your brain housing group, and form a stroke. It's just like a stroke, except that the clot is made of bubbles.
Yeah.
So cerebrovascular accident, a CVA of any kind, except not a bleed, but it can cause an aneurysm. It can blow up one vein. It can. I've never heard of it actually causing a bleed. And then you can get bent. You can get decompression sickness, which we call the bends. And that's a fascinating history of hyperbaric medicine right there. I mean, that is truly, we call it empiric. It's based on evidence, not clinical study. It's
an SOP that's written in blood.
It's those dive tables are truly written in blood, and the decompression rates, everything comes on the backs of divers who were bent for life.
Yep.
And the way they figured it out was that when the diver went back down, or not even a diver, like the caisson workers in New York City at the turn of the century, where they would put them down and pump out the air, or pump out the water. And they're on the riverbank, the river bottom, building these pilings and stuff in the caisson, or laying cement or whatever. They're still breathing air at depth, right? They're still pressurized. And they come up, they get fucking all, those bubbles come out in joints generally. That's why they call it being bent. So if it's in your spine, you're stooped over. Yeah, you're trying to find a position of comfort. And then they felt better when they went back down. And that's the way somebody started thinking. And modern medicine at the time would say, we can't treat you with what hurt you, right? We can't, if you have a pressure-related sickness, more pressure is not the cure. Well, it is the cure.
It is actually.
Yeah. So it's kind of seen as voodoo science for a long time until they started figuring it out, probably about the same time we figured out penicillin and stuff.
and the 4-H.
The 4-H's.
I have a non-medicine question. Just the timing when you went to Pendleton.
Yeah.
That would have been around the time Desert Storm was popping off, right?
Yes.
So did you or anybody get involved in that in any way?
100%. Yeah. I went for the whole time.
Okay. I'm getting ahead of you then. All right.
Okay.
All right.
So, yeah, I was there in March of 90.
Got it.
And so I started. So the life cycle, the platoon life cycles there is that you have a few guys together. It could be maybe 8 to 12 guys who are going to, they're a notional 7th platoon or 10th platoon, whatever. They are a notional platoon because now we've got some guys that are kind of within that parameter of going to be together for 36 months.
Years.
36 to 48 months, yeah. And then they start individual training. So they're saying, all right, so you don't have a platoon billet yet, so we'll send you off to Halo or send you off to
getting you all your qualifications.
Getting all those cool guy quals. And then you come together, you do platoon training for a year. And then you do MEU training for a year, which is the Marine Expeditionary Unit. That's the big Navy Marine Corps team that you're going to actually get on ship and deploy with, and do that 6-month deployment and come back. And that takes 36 months. So our 36 months got interrupted. So let me back it up. So once I had passed the NDOC and I got stuck with a platoon that was still forming up, and we didn't have a platoon sergeant, we didn't have a platoon commander, we didn't, so we had a team leader who was kind of a platoon sergeant there. Basically, I lived in the barracks, so we met in the, in the grinder, the parking lot, is where we had a formation grinder, and so you form up, and it's the same formation that any other Marine Corps uses, any other Marine Corps unit uses. The company gunny comes out. He tells you, I need 3 men. I need 1 man from each platoon to go over to battalion supply and check out weed eaters and get busy, and that's your job for the day, And so usually 1 man is the new guy. No matter what your rank is, you're 1 man. If you need 2 men, that's the guy who used to be 1 man and the guy who is now 1 man. So I need 2 men to go over to the chow hall and help them paint because they're repainting the chow hall, stuff like, so if there's extracurricular assignments, picking up pine cones here on Fort Bragg comes
Sergeant Major's detail.
That's right. Yeah. So company gunny comes out, then first sergeant comes out, he talks to the gunny goes to the side, comes around, and XO comes out, CO comes out. That's our formation. Same thing as everywhere else, I reckon. And so then we go through the summer, we're training as a platoon. Now we're formed up, we have a platoon sergeant. He's also a lifelong friend. Jim Booker is his name. He did over 30. So he was sergeant major for like he was in the top 5, which means the top 5 sergeant majors for the last 10 years of his career. So he was, in fact, he was up for sergeant major of the Marine Corps. But he was this senior enlisted or sergeant major for the entire Allied force in Afghanistan with General Dunphy, who went on to be Joint Chiefs, chairman of the Joint Chiefs. And So we had him, and then we had a captain as our platoon sergeant. No, he was the first lieutenant. And so who shortly made captain shortly after that. And then, then in, late July, early August, the whole thing in Kuwait sparked off. Saddam did his thing, and we pretty much just started moving quick like. We had to box up all our barracks stuff and move that, because we didn't know where, what's going to happen. So we had a rear party. But by then we had 5th, 6th, and 7th platoons were the 3 main platoons online that were all schooled up, had, been through or started MU training or something like that. And then 8th was a notional. Like, that was cats and dogs, right? So, we went pretty early August, maybe middle August. And we all landed in Port Jebel and started the staging, started all the staging work. And did that for about a month. We would go out for about a week at a time just to get the lay of the desert, learn the environment and stuff like that. It's it's not like the Sahara Desert out there. It's with all the seas of sand dunes. It's very flat, hard ground too. Unforgiving, rough on gear and feet. And the sheer amount of water you have to carry with you is prohibitive. It's bogus. So you got to get creative.
What sort of warning order did you guys have before heading to Kuwait?
Pack your shit.
Yeah. Just, we're going to go over there, and what happens.
1st Marine Division is going. We're going.
Yeah.
Yep. And at that time, the Force Recon Company was in an organization called the SRIG, or the SRIG. It was the Surveillance, Reconnaissance, Intelligence Group, which is an asset of 1st Marine Division. So they had there's a sensor company that places ground, that's called SCAMP. They place ground sensors on that, much like your Ring telephone, only it wasn't your Ring doorbell, except it wasn't smart and it wasn't, it was more seismic. And so we had, was it Sony? I think Sony come out and we got the very first hard card cameras, and it was a real a regular floppy disk that slid into the back of a camera and captured the photos digitally that we could send them back by a 104.
Al Gore had invented his internet by then.
That's right.
Yes. It was still in its nascent stage.
It was all radio. But so we were the first to see that. I'm like, wow, no more Nikonos 5 taking the pictures. Nikonos is a great camera because it goes underwater too, but you still gotta deal with film and develop it.
Yeah.
And so, that's a core recon skill. Back then it was, now.
Developed your own pictures?
Boop, boop. Yeah. And then we had, because what are you going to do? Take it over to CVS?
Eckerd. Does Eckerd even exist anymore?
I don't think so.
So we got a ton of new gear. We got the Chenoweth sand rails, the dune buggies.
Mm-hmm.
That was nice. But I didn't get to touch those. 8th platoon, the cats and dogs platoon, got that. We had motorcycles. We had, we started all of a sudden getting flooded with all the cool guy stuff that you never thought you'd ever see. You hear about it, it's out there, but you see it in Soldier of Fortune magazine.
Yeah.
Again, dating myself again. But so the warning order was really, at my level, it was, gather around, you got to go box up, you got to inventory everything. And this is your gear list. So it was very nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were there for about 30 days before before everything kicked off?
Well, no, we were there in August, so we went out to a forward site at Manifa Bay, and got to do some amphib stuff out there, just in case we were going to be dealing with that part of the coast, which we didn't know what our AO was going to be yet. And then finally, we got placed with. Then we got pulled back. When we got pulled back, we didn't go back to Port Jebel. We had these nice barracks, like trailer barracks, where it was a Pakistani work camp, because the Saudis, it was still within Saudi Arabia. So the Saudis hire all these
third country nationals,
TCNs,
to do all the labor. Yeah.
Right.
Filipinos.
So that's what it was. It was a work camp. And so we had actually air-conditioned barracks. I'm like, wow. 'Cause up to that point, we were living outside in tents and under cami nets and stuff, Much like scouts, they don't really let us in much, So don't really let us indoors very much. It's like, don't come in until them street lights are on, son. So I think then we went about September, October. I can't remember when the action at Kafji happened. But my old company, Alpha Company 3rd Recon, was there when that happened, when the tanks came in when the Iraqis came to surrender, and then they turned their guns around and started shooting and tried to capture Kafji. And a couple Bronze Stars came out of that, which back then, a Bronze Star, there wasn't, the last guy that got a Bronze Star in the Marine Corps was in Vietnam for sure. Or maybe Grenada. Or Lebanon, yeah.
Yeah.
So, so we started covering the diagonal elbow of the Kuwait-Saudi border, and started punching out patrols there to designate targets and do what we do. All in I'd say about 2 months in advance of the main thrust. So I would say November. No, we were there before Thanksgiving. You know how you kind of frame your mind around significant events. Well, that's what, like Booker coming out with turkey T-rats, tray rations that we heated on the Humvees, Humvee engine. So life in Humvees became a thing, and we covered. I wish I could explain it to you. I need a map, but from Kafji, there's a straight line. Then there's a diagonal north, like south to northwest line, and then it becomes flat again, going toward Basra. And so we covered my platoon had 3 teams, so we covered. It was OP4, OP5, and OP6. OP6 was in a small town. It's actually a resort town that had been let go. So it was just a shed. There were buildings. There were hard buildings there, but no AC, no nothing. They were guts. Just shells of things that, like, abandoned development is how I would best describe it. And so you spent your day basically patrolling the berm and sitting on the berm with some great optics, and then we got stuck with these. We got co-located with a bunch of guys from 5th Group, and so there was a team of recon guys, one team with them, a team from 515, and then a team of Saudi SF guys. And so we were living in these small castles of the Salah Hudud, which is the border patrol, and they would run up and down that border with the in Toyota, not Hiluxes, but smaller pickups, like the utility company uses, with those twin 30s on the back, hard mounted in the back or in the bed, and we call it Salah Hudud is a border patrol. We call them the slobby dudes. But it was cool because now you're actually forward. You're with some guys. You're getting good missions. You're getting assignments. You're on watch constantly. We had some great optics. We could designate targets from a long ways away. And we were starting to get things like the laser designators, the mule. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, the Pac 3 mule. It's a 3-man job to carry that thing. Just the power source alone, the battery pack is brutal. And but that's where we actually started like painting, where you could paint a target for an aircraft.
Yeah.
And hold that sparkle on. And back then, it was a device much bigger than anything in this room, except maybe this table. But it was, see how things have downsized now.
It's handheld.
It's amazing. Yep. I know it. That's what war will do. Propel technology.
It always has.
Propel medicine. So then the air war kicked off. We had to go back. We had dug out supplementary positions, supplementary fighting positions, just in case. And of course, the NBC thing, the CBRN thing, was just huge. And we started taking the PB pills, the pyridoxamine bromide, which to this day people think that's an experimental. Oh, I took the PB pill. That had been in use in medicine for years to treat people with the nystagmus, with the twitchy eye, to calm down that twitch, which is what, nerve gas is a nerve agent is. It's a very bad twitchy thing. That's what it causes, is those severe muscle spasms. So allegedly the PB would allow you to take a couple whiffs of that before you got to your gas mask, allegedly.
Not something you really want to test.
That's right. That's what I'm like. Why do I need to know that a blood agent smells like new mown hay?
Yeah. I don't want to smell it.
I don't want to smell those bitter almonds or whatever.
Yeah.
It's funny because we say, NBC stands for nobody cares. They were caring at that point.
Right up until they do.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And then, so then the air war, the 4-day air war thing went, and then the main thrust went through, and then it was over. And we had one team that cleared the Al Wafra Forest region. They did identify several minefields. The police station that they were using as a main supply route, MSR, that got designated. So we saw some, I'd say the fruits of our efforts.
Yeah. You guys were doing all the target prep.
We did
for the lead up, and then when everybody rolled forward.
We also caught a lot of EPWs trying to cross, and
enemy prisoners of war.
Correct. Yeah. And one day it was just me and my team leader. His name is Steve Minix. He's a great guy. He just retired he did his 20 in the Corps, and then also just retired from the VA as a GS. So, and he's helped a lot of brothers with their VA processes too. So shout out to Steve Minix. He's a good dude. It was just he and I rolling between two OPs. We had to drop somebody off and pick somebody up. And so it was a daylight admin run, and I just said, Steve, what's that over there? And there's a white T-shirt flying over the berm. I'm like, whoosh. And I'm like, Steve, there's something up there. He goes, go check it out. I'm like, okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'll cover you. And I'm like, take the 60. And so I went up, and it was 3 guys. And so right away, you go into prisoner handling mode, and got them down, got them separated fast, cuffed them quick. And now it's just, we're in a 4-pack Humvee. And so I got after I searched them, and I could speak enough Arabic at that point to ask them where they had come from. And we couldn't do it on the road.
These were Iraqi army?
Deserters.
Yes, deserters, yeah. So I got them on the tailgate of the Humvee. Well, this was an unimproved dirt road, so I'm like, Steve, this isn't going to work. They're about to bounce off, and we didn't even have a troop strap on.
And they're handcuffed.
And they're cuffed they're cuffed behind in the back, yeah. So I'm like, we have to put them in the freaking vehicle. So I happen to have a M9 Fighting Machine Pew Pew on me, and so I basically turn around we put him in the back seat of the Hummer, and I just turned around backwards and just, yeah, that's right. And we got him back to another OP where we had more guys, and then we could take care of him the right way, So we got him some food, got him some water, started breaking out maps. Show me this is like a basic land nav. I was here and now I'm here. That's all I'm asking from you. Show me where on this map, and I got pretty much consistent answers out of everybody. So we got ambushed one night we had some intel.
Real quick,
yeah.
How common was the desertion?
Pretty common.
Yeah, from your experience. You got those three guys, but
yep.
within your unit or within your sector there,
there was quite a few that actually made it through without getting seen because just nobody was on. This is a large section of real estate. Yeah, nobody was on the road at that point. That just kept walking. I think they tried to surrender to a helicopter, and there was quite a few line crossers.
Yeah.
Those are the only three that I personally handled. Well, no, that's not true. We did handle them again. We had an episode where we got ambushed up at Hamel Tiat, which is an OP6. And that's that skeleton of a town that I've been telling you about. And we had some intel that they were that there was a force coming through to surrender. And so we had 2 interpreters assigned to us that were real ITT, interrogation, or whatever you call them, interrogator, translator, Marines that were Saudi speakers. So they were attached to us. And then, so ended up going up there to basically hit the rack for a little while behind their wire before we drove back to my OP at OP5. And had gotten a huge gunfight there. They didn't come to surrender. They wanted one of those Saudi SF guys. So they kept saying, send out a Saudi guy. And our interpreter was like, la, 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 no, no, no. And so all of a sudden they lit off. There's a big square berm in front of this hotel that was at one time supposed to be a resort. Like I said, it was like an abandoned development. So it was just, but it's all good concrete though. So that was good because they started ripping off RPGs, and they had RPKs in the corners, and it was pretty intimidating there. That air went horizontal real fast, and in the morning, and then they registered artillery on us, and so they pulled back and started shooting, and so we stayed under sustained bombardment for a couple hours, and then
I assume our air came in and took care of that.
No, remember the oil fields had blown. They had blown those oil fields, so there was no ceiling really. It was prohibitive. It was pretty gnarly. Yeah.
Got it.
And so we decided that let's just get out of here. We had a couple trucks. One was disabled by gunfire, and so we got in what we had and just went back to this bridge where we had dug out supplementary positions. And sure enough, in the morning, here comes some guys moseying along. That wasn't us last night.
Of course not.
Yeah, but we know who they are. Mm-hmm. So again, show me on the map. Yeah. Where'd you come from, and where are you now? And so then it was 7th Platoon turn. So we'd been up there for a month, and so 7th Platoon came up and relieved us. And one of my best friends, his name is Kevin. He still lives near me in Fredericksburg now, and so we've been stationed together quite a bit for a Marine and a sailor. Probably at least 4 duty stations together, I think. So we 3, yeah. But he came up and he's like, dude, what are we doing here? I'm like, hey, I got some booby traps out. Here are the pins. Let's take a crawl. And so he and I went out, and there's one, there's the pin. There's another one, there's the pin. And so they took over from there. And then the main force went through, and pretty much they came back, and everything was over. So
yeah, it didn't take long.
Right.
How long were you in country after?
So February, March. So I think hostilities were complete by mid-February. And I think at the end of March, we egressed back to Pendleton.
Pretty quick.
Yeah.
Pretty quick.
Yeah. We had interesting things. Somebody may have hidden a bunch of OP-4 weapons in the oil pan of those sandrails,
Mm-hmm.
the Chenoweth dune buggies, and then got cold feet and amnesty boxed them all. Amnesty boxed them at the airfield as we're going to drive the dune buggies onto the C5s. Dating myself again. But
you say somebody might have?
Yeah.
Somebody that you don't know?
It could have happened. I may have heard about it.
Asking for a friend.
So, but yeah, the egress was pretty smooth. Yeah. We went through Germany, Zaragoza, Spain, the Azores, Delaware, and then Pendleton. So, yeah, it was pretty one-stop shop flight. Well, there was a lot. It was way more than one stops, but yeah. So
same bird, so just refueling.
Yeah. But then,
so at this point, when you got back,
mm-hmm.
you'd been in for a decade.
Yeah.
Were you totally in career mode at this point?
Essentially, because by this time I'm a senior E5 looking at E6, and then now I'm looking for orders too. Yeah. Oh, no. I'm sorry. Then we did another deployment. We did our regularly scheduled program,
right?
Which was to go back into platoon training.
I know that you guys got interrupted by a war and everything, exactly. But we're going to go ahead, just jump right back.
We have a schedule to maintain.
Well, it was kind of bogus because we had the what do you call the guys when they don't let them get out? The stop loss.
Mm-hmm.
So we had some guys that were stop lost, and so they were essential part of the platoon, but as soon as they got back to Pendleton, it was like 4 or 6 of them, and we lost those guys immediately. Mm-hmm. Like they never even came. I never even saw them after we all got 30 days leave, of course.
Yeah.
So by the time we all reconvened back at Pendleton, they were already processing out. We couldn't really go a going away party or paddle party, whatever. And that was a little less than graceful as far as I'm concerned, how they treated those guys.
That did not change.
Not much.
Okay.
Years later.
Yeah. There's got to be a better way, because those guys just felt like, all right, you screwed me once. Now you're just letting me go like yesterday's trash.
Yeah. I mean, it was from my experience, it really was like, all right. We're flying back and cut sling load.
You may go now.
Good luck to you.
Yeah. Thanks
cut sling load. That's it. See ya.
Thanks for coming to the show, bro.
Yeah.
Some of that didn't change.
Yeah.
So then, we went on to do our regularly scheduled deployment. So we went back to the 1 year of platoon training. 6 months of platoon training. Then we got some new people in to backfill them, and then. We got a new platoon commander because Bob had picked up captain, and now he's supposed to be a company commander. Now he's a captain who's only been a platoon commander, right? And he's supposed to have company level command, and so he actually went to the bureau. He actually went to the FBI and just retired from that a couple of years ago. And
like he left the Marines.
Yeah. Okay. This dude was a Captain America bro. Like he's a hardcore guy, abnormal psych major. Criminal justice major. big Penn State guy. I think he just got on the security detailer for the Steelers, or the director of security for the Steelers, which
there are worse jobs. He's
and moaning, but I'm telling you, I'm like, aren't you at all the games though, bro? Isn't this a dream come true for a Happy Valley guy, So we lost him, so we got a new platoon commander. Then we had to do like some of the platoon training, like the shooting package where it's all MP5s and 45s and the surgical shooting and extremist hostage rescue, all that stuff, more amphib stuff, lock in, lock out, learn how to lock out a submarine. We all did that together. All that kind of practice, we did all that, and then made our regularly scheduled deployment on a ship for 6 months with the rest of the Marine Expeditionary Unit, which is all your Navy assets, the air ground. We had the Marine Air Wing with us. We had everything that you need to reflag a small country, or.
There has to be a feeling of elation. We kind of skipped over the end of the Cold War, but, the wall's down, Desert Storm is now complete.
Yeah.
You're active duty service member. You got to be looking around thinking, like, man.
The world is changing.
Like, we won.
Yeah, the world is changing.
Now, we all know that, with hindsight, that there's more to it than that.
That's right.
But that must be a good feeling at this point.
Yeah, it is very odd. It was a weird, odd time. And on that deployment, we got Clinton, too.
Yeah.
So there's a whole shift in mindset, in the national mindset, and
the peace dividend.
Exactly. So I guess it's something I would call an X factor. Something's different, but you can't, to quantify it at an operational level is difficult. Like, you're still going to fulfill your oath of enlistment or your commission, or you're still going to do your job, but what are our national objectives now, right? And how do they relate to me and my brothers around me?
Yeah. All of our enemies are vanquished. What do we do now?
Yeah.
Smoking on the objective.
Well, we got to, when we come back after a word from our sponsors, we can talk about the Somalia stuff that I did on that.
Oh,
front.
Yeah. We'll get to Somalia right after this break.
All right. All right, so we were talking about regularly scheduled deployment with 1st Force Recon Company. I was still in 6th Platoon after the Desert Shield Desert Storm. Then we came back, went on leave. And then we had about 6 months of platoon training. That's when I came back here I went to Halo here, and then at the
they had the chambers back then
at the Halo barn.
Yeah.
And then everyone else was pumped out doing other training and stuff. And then we all came back together. We started our shooting packages.
All your research.
A lot of research. A lot of just long, just long weeks, just there in Southern Cal, the weather is always permissive, so you can do pretty much whatever you want in terms of amphib. The water's colder in winter naturally, but Pacific is never warm to begin with, so it's not like, So, get back into a lot more amphib, a lot more diving, because we hadn't done any of that during, over in the Gulf. And so we floated with our Marine Expeditionary Unit. That's the big show right there. That's all the party crashers in one place with all the assets you need to reflag a small country or change the mind of a big country, so it's...
Which might be going on right now.
That's right.
As we speak.
And kudos to those men and women who are doing it, too. So we did, we left San Diego, hit Hawaii to refuel, get more food, hit the Philippines, hit Guam, more fuel, more food. Right about Guam is when the diet on board ship begins to shift. And... because now you're
there was at that time there wasn't really a threat of Guam turning over.
No. I was surprised.
That was a few years down the line.
I was surprised. I did some of that initial physics, just to make sure that it wasn't going to capsize.
We're good. We're good.
And then we hit Singapore. That's when everybody goes broke because you've hit 3 big money ports here. You hit Hawaii, then you hit Guam, which ain't that expensive, but it ain't cheap either. And then you hit Singapore. That is high dollar. And so that's when you start getting flaming checkbooks. And back then you're still getting paid with hard check. Mm-hmm. And so you could get cash on the ship. Like you could go.
Yeah. In this era of electronic bank transfers and you never actually see your money.
Yeah.
People forget that there was a payroll officer.
That's right.
Carried around, escorted by armed guards.
Yes.
Escorted that payroll to each unit.
That's right.
And paid you out in cash.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so, I used to gamble with that guy. We had a big money gambling ring, poker ring.
That's a whole other episode
on ship. And so I was there. I'm like, I gotta lay out unless you guys will take a check. And he's got the whole music. He's got the little. It looks like a metal tackle box, a locked tackle box. He goes, "I'll cash you out right now. You got a check? I got money." I'm like, "Hell yeah!" And he cashed me a $500 check right there. That's right. And just make it out to the United States government. But then we got a frag order for Somalia. And so we went down, which is good because Kenya, we got mail. So that's always nice to get mail when you're on deployment. And then we floated south of Somalia. A few people went ashore, but I really didn't. It was, we did a lot of planning. But really, I'm sorry, let me back it up. We went back to Kuwait, and we trained with the newly established Kuwaiti Marine Corps. And so we were breaking out guns out of Greece. So they're wearing American camis.
Right out of the crate.
Woodland camis, guns right out of the Greece. We're showing them how to put them together, how to set them up, and everything. So we had a marksmanship line. I did demo. And then we had another guys that were doing swimming. And so in our SEAL platoon that was on float with us, they were doing the swimming portion. And then we did the marksmanship and demolitions. So I stuck with the demo crew, and we did that for about a month. And that was August in Kuwait, not pleasant, living outside all the time again. They don't really,
Kuwait's pretty much always like
it's
that.
Pretty much bad, yeah. And then we got fragged to Somalia. That was still when it wasn't a Marine expeditionary action. It was a humanitarian mission, So that was because the warlords were hoarding the chow and hoarding the rice.
All the UN rations.
Exactly. Yeah. So controlling the food like we were talking about off to the side. And so I think some of our guys, like some of the grunts, went in and did security at those points. We were pretty much just a force in readiness. So this would be September of '92.
Yep.
And so well before it became an expeditionary operation, which again 7th platoon. I was still in 6th platoon. 7th platoon is the one who's relieved us. They went straight to Somalia, and then it did become an expeditionary action. And they were downtown. They were on shore downtown all the time. So we were not. We were observing and standing by to stand by, basically. So not much play there. The mission had not yet shifted, with the Clinton's policy of no troops on the ground. That time, that's when we got to go through we have the whole tradition of crossing the equator, becoming a shellback.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole MEU got to go through WOG Day, which is crossing the line. So if you hadn't crossed the line yet, you go through a day of fun. That's a great time right there, let me tell you.
I'll let you know that the first person to come on this show to talk about becoming a shellback was not a Navy sailor.
Right.
It's a Coast Guardsman.
Okay, it's the same thing. Still a seafarer.
He was going back and forth to Alaska, the Arctic Circle up there somewhere.
Yeah, they were.
Well, if you cross the Arctic Circle, that's Blue Nose.
Oh, he's did
done
it all.
that and all.
Okay.
And everything. Yeah.
And it didn't happen to him, but it did happen to his buddy. The Coast Guard stole his birthday.
Yeah, it happened to me.
With the Dateline.
It happened to me with the Dateline. My birthday's 8 September. We flew to Okinawa on the 7th and landed on the 9th. There I was. Still 20. Still not 21 yet. Damn it.
Didn't count.
Yep. So, and then once that was over, we sailed straight back to Pendleton, and now it's time for everybody to disperse, which is always a sad time, So now I'm looking for orders again.
It's like that scene at the end of Ocean's 11, at the
Yeah.
very end, where they all just kind of
drift off.
When it comes to that point where pretty much everybody has done their time, how much of a shell is left behind?
Very little. Very little.
Because, I mean, somebody has got to stay there to keep the structure in place and all. Still have a force that's ready.
Well, remember,
they just rebuild a new one.
They're just rebuilding a new
Yeah.
one. So if you wanted to stay, you would just roll back into another
different platoon.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because
makes
7th
sense.
is out, 8th is going to replace them, and then they'll probably switch back to 1st platoon.
So it's like a leapfrog.
2nd platoon, yeah. So it's a 3. Again, the organization of 3.
Yeah.
Much like the Sith, except with the Sith there are only 2.
I get that reference.
So,
Except under Palpatine.
So now I'm looking for orders again, and so there was a SOT Tech billet down at the mammal unit, and a good buddy of mine wanted to leave, and I'm still talking to him. That's John Peacock. He's a physician in the Army National Guard, PA National Guard now. He just made full colonel, and I trained up there to Philly and attended his promotion, so that was pretty cool. But he wanted to leave. We were both the same rank, same billet, and that's what the detailer loves. If you get 2 guys who want to do a duty swap in the same state, come on, that's the cheapest option, because he's got his PCS budget and you just didn't touch it, right? So that was down at Sub Base Point Loma, and right off Rosecrans Drive. So you turn right at the airport, keep going all the way to the point, Cabrillo Point, and down the bay side, San Diego Bay side of the hill is the sub base. That's the boomer base too. But our headquarters was over on Coronado. So San Diego Harbor, there's the big naval station, 32nd Street Naval Station. That's where the fleet is. And then on this Coronado Island, which is a barrier island, you have all NAB, Naval Amphib Base Coronado. That's where all the CBs, the special boat units,
NSW folks.
A lot of Naval Special Warfare guys, all the SEAL teams, 1, 3, 5, and 7 are there. At that time, it was just 1, 3, 5. And then
having fun in the sand.
Yep, they're on the ocean side. And then you have Naval Air Station, North Island. So if you're up on the road, you can see the subs, the fleet. You can see it all. It's a beautiful area to be stationed. And so that's where we have the Marine Mammal Program in the Navy. And these are dolphins and sea lions. And we have a couple beluga whales too, but they don't actively work for the Navy. We have several hundred animals, maybe 100 animals. But the actual ones that are actually operational, like think of like a canine, like a MP canine or an operational canine. Those animals are few and far between. They've already been trained. They're certified to certify, licensed to kill type animals. So they have behaviors that we maintain. So they do things like they find mines, whether they are anti-submarine mines, that's like the mines on a chain. Like to live underwater. We have animals that go and attack the chain and surface that mine. We have my animals were the ones. The Mark 7 Marine Mammal System was the one that we find things on the bottom place mines, or MLOs, mine-like objects. So these are mines that are there to basically hamper amphibious landing. So I'm still in amphibious landing mode. I'm still in coastal assault mode. And then we have the anti-swimmer dolphins. Those detect and neutralize enemy swimmers
Other
and
dive
divers.
teams,
Yeah. And then we have the sea lions, and their dogs. They fetch. That's what they do. They carry a bite plate in their mouth with a snap link on it, and a big thing of 1-inch Samson braid rope, and they swim with that, and they just look for anything they can snap that onto. They come back, jumping back in the Zodiac, get fed a bunch of fish, and then we got to pull that thing up.
I've never heard of such a thing.
Yeah,
I think probably a solid 90% of active duty military and veterans have never heard of that before.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
I've never heard of it.
And so what's cool about that unit is, first of all, you get all the great amphib gear. You get you get measured for a custom wetsuit, which still fits, by the way. And
if I do say so myself.
And I mean, you're wearing flip flops and shorts to work every day with a grossly overpowered small boat with a government gas card in your pocket.
And all the sardines you could ever want to eat.
It's farm work. You don't pitch hay. You thaw and bucket fish.
And sneak a few.
Yeah, no, you don't want none of those fish.
To the dolphins, how do you train them to be anti-diver?
So you train them to hit a target.
Right.
So, and they have this part I can't talk about. They carry something on their face too. Like they carry a weapon on their snout that will mark an enemy diver. So it's got something that will inject a needle, a hook into an enemy swimmer.
Anti-personnel.
Yes. And then they pull out, the nose cup becomes a little float, and it unreels and goes to the surface. And then the animal comes back, gets in your boat. They beach up into your boat with you. We have a cutout in the side. And they have a nice mat and everything they lay and ride on. And then you call your security force. Say, one of our animals just tagged a diver, and come get him.
He's got a beacon on him at this point.
Yeah. He's screwed if he survives the trip to the surface, because
he may get bends, right?
Oh, he'll get embolized for sure.
Yeah.
With working dogs, they have to verify, I guess, like every day with specific scents that they're looking for, and sometimes they have good days and they scent everything, and then sometimes
that's right,
they're not working well. Is that the same sort of thing with sea lions and dolphins?
Yeah, it's very similar. So they've already been trained to do all that, and so what we do is maintain the behaviors. So, like, talk about asking, how do you train them to impact a human, like to tag a human, like to playing tag? Well, that's how you start them out. This is a game of tag, and they come to hand station on your chest, and then you get them to push you around the chest, and then you reward them for it. Push you around the pen, and so I'll have them pushing them, like that. But so you're in the water working with them all day, every day. I mean, you got diaper rash and you smell like fish for 3 years. It's pretty.
Other than that, it's great.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. I mean,
there are worse jobs to have.
There are, but you better love cold water. You better love diving all day, every day, up until, I mean, we bend several guys a year in that unit, and even because we dive right up to the edge, then we pull you out, get you a surface job on the boat, for a while until you bought back enough nitrogen time. And then we'll put you back in the harness and max you out again, all day, every day, somebody's going to get it,
Now, this is a mammal team.
Yeah.
Did anybody ever consider training sharks with frickin' laser beams on their heads and adding them to the team?
I'm not sure that they've got the heart for it, honestly, man. I mean, I think they're bullies, and I would never they got enough teeth as it is. I would never give them a laser.
It's a little overkill. I mean, it's
But has anybody seriously considered it?
So, I know the father.
That's your answer.
The father of this program is a guy named Dr. Sam Ridgway, and you can't really open up a marine biology textbook without his credits in it. And in the 60s, during the Sea Lab project, there was a dolphin that kept sticking around the divers. He just liked the humans for whatever reason. And so they got him to start doing tool retrieval. And they'd get him a fish or two. So he liked working with the humans. And so there was an idea, see if they want to hang out for real. And that was the birth of the program. That animal is named Tuffy. And he is he's stuffed or there's a replica of Tuffy at the vet lab in San Diego.
I thought you were going to tell me that Dr. Evil was the father of the program.
That's right. So
Dr. Evil.
It's evil.
I didn't spend 8 years in evil medical school to be called Mr. Evil. Thank you very much.
So when I had to intern with him for several months just to get my marine mammal vet tech qualifications, because that was my secondary MOS was marine mammal vet tech.
Yeah.
So I had to go to work for him, which means I was over at the vet lab looking at blood under microscopes. I was in the necropsy room looking at skeletons. I was looking at whales that had beached, trying to help him solve the mystery of why whales beach themselves, stuff like that. And, very curious, very interesting lab work. And
any orca in the program?
At one time there was a false killer whale, the pseudorca.
Yeah.
But not now. Not now. There were when I was there, it was the two belugas, which they can never be released. But there's Ruby and Muktuk, which one of them, I think it's Ruby, has a vocal thing, a vocal signature. It sounds exactly like "Let me out." It's like "Let me out, let me out," and through the blowhole. It's pretty. When you hear
it eerie
from across the pen, you're like, "What? Is there somebody stuck somewhere?"
That's eerie.
So, that's diving every day, all day. It's hard labor. I mean, we have an overnight duty, but his job is to get up at 3 a.m. and start thawing out fish for the day's work. And it's several thousand pounds, for every day.
It's a lot of sardines.
It's a lot of fish, yeah.
Yeah. For about how many animals? Roughly.
Up to a dozen, maybe, at our fattest. And then over the Mark 6 animals, the anti-personnel or ship's defense is what they're called. Ship's defense animals were over at NAB headquarters. And they mostly that's to protect a high-value asset like a carrier.
Yeah.
The USS Blue Ridge, command and control ship, stuff like that, assets like that. They'll patrol that area. And they get paid in fish for two things, detection and then interdiction. So if they detect something, we have a system that we hang over the side, like a touchpad. And they will come over and, how the canine sits if he smells dope? It's like that. So they come do a behavior to indicate that there's a target. It could be a no doubt manta or seagull mine, which is some of the typical Italian and French made bottom place mines, or it could be a washing machine that somebody threw over the side. Something is hollow, it's metal. It's a mine-like
irregular,
a mine-like object. Yeah. But we have shapes that we put down for them, and they know what all those shapes are. So, but to your point, they have good days, bad days. Like I had one, he was a teenaged male, about 500 pounds, named Sir Nose. And Sir Nose had excellent sonar. So they find it with their echolocation, right? And they have good vision too, but we're talking 300 yards underwater. He'll pick it up. So you give him his package. Again, can't talk too much about that, but let me just say it's going to overpressure the mine shape. So he's going to pull his face out of the nose cup. A clock starts. Usually it's about 30 minutes. And he comes back to the boat, which gives us plenty of time to get clear of the area. There's going to be a detonation, and that will deal with that mine. And then we can either surface it and try to exploit it with whatever's left, or something. But then we'll put human divers down. So Sir Nose I identify because he knows he's going to get paid. So he'd see the shape, but you give him his package, and all of a sudden he shakes it off, and it's like he can't see the shape no more. It's because he's lazy and he doesn't want to haul his gear 300 yards.
So like us.
Yeah, like a PFC, man. And
rucksack's heavy.
That's right, exactly.
Sarnt.
And so you circle back in. Now you got to pull the thing back out, rebuild it, and then put it back together and get it ready for the next run. So we circle a circle into finally 100 meters away. He sees it again, comes back, indicates that he sees a target, gets his cheap fish or not. Give him his package, and then he'll take it down, and then we dive straight down on it. And so to watch him do it, and that's depending on how there's a parameter of where he's supposed to place that, and depending on how well he does or doesn't, that's how he gets paid. You know, if he nails it, you know, it's you know, huge applause, big splashing handfuls of fish, and you know, big pats on the back and everything, and scratch them up. They like to be scratched, but yeah, they do have good days and bad days. You know, just like kids. I mean, I walked down one day, and one animal was laying on its back, just whack, kapow, tail slapping the water, and it's either too early or this is Workers Unite, and it sounds like a gunshot. It's like if you've ever heard a beaver slap the water with its tail down by the river, it sounds like a gunshot. And then one of them, somebody else will be watching, because they're only separated by a net, so they'll be watching. They talk, you know. They
definitely talk.
Yep. And all of a sudden, you know, they start. Now there's a revolt. Now there's a workers. Now it's going to take a scab to break the strike line, you know, for somebody.
Nice.
Or they won't get in the boat. You know, now you're out at sea and you can't leave. You know, so, and then you'll get a radio call. Hey, he's back at the pens. He already swam back. Like, so you come back, and you know he's floating right outside his own pen. And what he wants you to do is open the sea gate. But I'm like, nope, you got to get in the boat. And then so I'll tie up the boat with the cutout facing outboard. Call him up. Put him in his pad. Swing the boat around.
Yeah.
And put him into his pen the right way. If he don't do it, I'll just let him sit there. I'll take his whole bucket. I'll just start chucking fish one at a time into his pen so he can see his food going away, you know. And it's going to get it is the pelicans and scuba ducks.
Mm-hmm. These are highly intelligent animals.
Yes.
So you can't tell me that they don't know what they're
doing. They know
yeah.
exactly what they're doing. Yeah. And what sucks is for the males, you know, they're right there. They're highly sexualized animals. They're not sexualized. They are highly sexual animals. Like if you wiped out half the dolphins on the planet today, in a year they would be off the endangered list. That's how much.
I think that did happen with the dolphins, and they did come back.
Yeah, they are so prolific as a species. You know, they're banging all the time, and but the males are right there with the females, just separated by a net. You know, so it's just like they're. I know it's torture for them. And in fact, we lost an animal who was an escape artist. His name was Fred. And Fred could break out of his pen and get into the female's pen, get the goods, and then break back into his own pen.
I'm not even mad. I'm impressed.
Yeah. Well, he gave his life for it. We found him one morning drowned. And that's a sad day at that unit. It wasn't while I was there. It was right after I left. But, that's a sad day for that unit when you lose an animal. We lost a sea lion one time, too. And that's a very sad day and represents a huge loss in capability, you know.
Yeah. So you were there
for three
in
years.
Cold water and smelling like fish for 3 years.
Yeah.
At any point, Was that a Navy assignment?
Or that was a Navy command. No, that's a Navy command. That's EOD Mobile Unit 3. Yep. So there had been 10 years. So that was my 10th year of sea duty. So now they're really looking at me like, you got to go to shore, Brenden. So I went to the year-long medical school. We usually would go to 18 Delta, but they were closed that year. Mm-hmm. They were closed. At that time, it was down in Texas.
Sam Houston?
Yeah. Okay. It was down at Fort Sam. That year, they were moving it from Fort Sam back up to Bragg. And so they're like, 18 Delta's closed for a year. There's no class for a year. You can go to the Navy Independent Duty Corpsman School. And so me and another recon guy and like 7 SEAL team corpsmen all went to so this is the school where you go, like not every destroyer, there's not a doctor on destroyers. There's no doctor on cruisers. There's no doctor on a submarine. There's an independent duty corpsman. So that's when it's a year long of medical school. It's like PA school basically, without the advanced chemistry. And but you are the only medical guy they've got, So I went to that school. So that got me off the duty roster for a while because it's a year long, and I had made E6 by that time. And now you're starting to look for orders. Well, at that time during school, the recruiting team from Camp David came over. And they were looking for 2 corpsmen, a male and a female. And so they want someone right out of school. So, and somebody with a clearance, So we interviewed, and I got selected. So at that time, we all had to have all the SOT techs, SEAL team, Green Beret, medic, 18 Deltas, SEAL team corpsman, recon corpsman, all had to have EMTP cards, so you had to get your paramedic license. Mm-hmm. So I got pumped out to San Diego Fire for a few months, rode the rigs as a civilian I was at Station 9 La Jolla Shores, which was a great station, very busy, but it was all medical. These are old, sick, rich people. In fact, they should have died 20 years ago, except they've got such good medical care. All my buddies
should all be so lucky,
right? All my brothers are down in like Lemon Grove and down by the border, by TJ, by Tijuana, San Isidro. They're all down there in the Knife and Gun Club getting what we're supposed to be getting, which is the trauma medicine, right? I am shocking 8 people a night. I'm treating terminal diabetics that should definitely not be alive. So I'm getting the medical calls at my station. Occasionally we get some hard trauma because we also covered that section of I-5, 405 intersection, and that's a rough one for motor vehicle accidents. So I did get my share of trauma, just not the gunshots, and just not the Knife and Gun Club. So I did that for a year, got selected for camp, went to Camp David. That's a 3-year hitch, and that was pure shore duty, so no more jump and dive pay. I made chief there as soon as I got there, actually. So we have a chief's initiation when you make E7 in the Navy. It's harsh, and it starts around
more than pink belly.
Yeah, it's pretty rugged. It's training. It's good training, and it teaches you it's like advanced teamwork exercise, And it's a CB command, so that was my first exposure.
Oh wow! Okay.
To CBs.
Yeah.
Made some lifelong friends there. Also, I hung out a lot with Marine Security Company, MSC, and those guys half of them are grunts that are just on that assignment. The other half are actually security guard Marines. Like they're going to go to an embassy at some point. They've been through MSG school, Marine Security Guard school. And so, and that's a whole different career path, And so then I finished that up. I used my presidential duty card and I had 3 kids by that time. Still, now I'm, E7, 3 kids, no jump and dive pay, so times were a little tight, but the the shore duty was nice. It was a great area to live in. Still very much out in the woods. You are out in the woods. And So the outdoor recreation out there is phenomenal, and it's a great place to raise kids too. So I used my presidential pref to go back home, to finally go back home to Florida and be a diver. And so 20 years later, my 17-year-old plan kicked in, and I got down to dive school. That's pretty rigorous, you know. Now you're in training command, and so once training command owns you, they own your ass. You know, there's no getting out of that. They own you for 3 years. They're not going to let you go for nothing. And so that was. I was in specialized diving division. I taught 3 classes. It was Marine Combatant Diver, which is all the closed circuit diving, the O2 diving, EOD diver, and Amphib Recon Corpsman, which is the chamber, the hyperbaric treatment, you know, how we treat patients in that hyperbaric chamber. I got a couple good shots on social media of that. Well, pretty much everything except Camp David. You're not allowed to, but
of course.
So I did that for 3 years, and my motto at that point was 20 years and 20 minutes. That's as in 20 minutes to the front gate, you know, and get out. But I've got a offer I couldn't refuse, which was to come up here to Quantico and be in Marine Corps Systems Command, which is the acquisition side of things. So, which is that was a great 3 years. So you're on, you know, you're a test parachutist, you're an experimental diver, you're testing everything. So and it's Quantico. The night vision lab is right up at Belvoir. You've got Marine Corps Combat Development Center right there. You've got just some amazing assets right there. The rifle team is there. Like I got to be some of the first test shooters for the SCAR system, just by being in SysCom, you know. So when they started breaking out with color NVGs, that was pretty badass, you know. And I would have never gotten a chance to look at that technology and learn how we field equipment with a life cycle sustainment trail behind it, or tail behind it, that will sustain that thing for the rest of its life. You know, when you're a Lance Cooley or a corporal, you know, you just think that piece of gear has been waiting at battalion supply its whole life for you to come get it. That's not exactly true. There's a way to get the cap, and the cap with the little keeper on it on the canteen, you know, or your Camelback or whatever. There's a nomenclature for everything, as we all know, and that nomenclature comes with a sustainment funding line behind it to make sure that, you know, before we put boots on the ground, we've got 1 million bullets and 1 million socks already there, you know. And so that was another look at where you fit in the big picture, you know. And that was kind of now you're looking from a little higher altitude at how these operating forces get man-trained and equipped. So I've seen the manning side as a junior guy. I've seen the training side as a mid-level guy. Now as a senior guy, I'm seeing the equipping side. And so that pretty much is, I did that for 3 years and retired there at 22 years in 2006. And I got to do all the manning for MARSOC, because at that time I was
They're just standing MARSOC up at that.
That's correct. No. We had done Det 1 at first, and then that was a test. That was a tester. And then we started forming the MARSOC companies and the MSOBs and the Special Operation Battalions, which now became the Raiders. So I got to do all that manning, and I got to sit with those Pommy logistics type officers as the senior enlisted representative for that career field for the Recon Corpsmen, because we're basically going to take the Force Recon companies and change their signs. That's how MARSOC was built. And then just to be able to watch that progress to what it is today is very rewarding, you know, and that's been 20 years now. So, and I'll be down at our birthday is our celebration day is it's 0321 is the Marine MOS for Recon, and so 0321 is March 21st. So I'll be back down here in a couple weeks for over at Lejeune for that observance.
Gotcha.
Then after that, I decided to stick with the defense trades, and I contracted for a couple years, and then I flipped over. Unfortunately, I became a single custodial dad of 3, and I flipped over to GS so I could get contractors to do most of my work for me, spent the travel time. And although my co-parent was very supportive also, my former spouse. And so, yeah, I did that for 15, and I just retired from that last year.
When you enlisted originally, all those years ago, you just wanted to be a hard hat diver.
That's it.
And then you ended up doing pretty much everything other than that.
That's right.
At what point did you know that, like, this is for me? This is what I want to do?
So that's a great question, and there was a moment, and we were practicing on GoPlats, the Gulf oil platforms, and so how to take down an oil rig, and this is when you're taking everything you learned on the range and all your other stuff, that how to apply those tactics, like planes, trains, automobiles, all that. Oil platforms are obviously, that's a national asset, so if somebody decides they want to land a force on take over a rig or just stop its operation or something like that, that's a good employment for a Force Recon platoon. So there's 3 3 platforms we use for practice. I forget who owns them, but it's Shell or Exxon, I'm sure, or SO. It's up by Santa Barbara, and you can see all 3 from the beach. You don't need to be at an elevated position to see them. They're like 1, 2, 3, or X-ray, Yankee, Zebra, whatever their designators are. And so we were circling at a staging platform. I was in a Huey with the fast rope in my lap, and so I'm going to push it and slide down. I've got an MP5, a 45, my medical kit, and a crowbar on my back. And I've got 4 guys right next to me who are going to scoot, and get on that line too. And so we're going to land on the helo deck. And the mission is that if the deck is fouled, like if they foul the deck so that a helicopter can't land. So we're going to fast rope down. So I'm watching, and this is during MEU training, so everybody's coming together for this thing. So I see there's on the GoPlat, there's a surf deck. That's the lowest deck on the thing. There's a production deck. There's a barracks deck. And then there's the helicopter pad. That's kind of how it goes. Or it could be barracks, production, whatever. And then and operations. And then so I'm sitting there watching. It's right at sundown. And so you're circling, just orbiting the staging platform. And I'm watching the special boat units below, thousands of feet below, or maybe 1,000 feet below, just boom, splashing through the surf, and they're gunning the surf deck. And it's not live fire, but this is because it's still oil platforms,
That would be bad.
Right.
Okay.
So they're running on the surf deck. The Cobras are coming in, the Cobras that we're going to deploy with, they're hitting it. So that squadron is working their job. And then this whole time and then it's going to be our turn. So we're going to hit it from the top, and we're all going to meet in the middle, allegedly. And this is when, you're wearing all black clothes and shooting your MP5. You got little water wings in case somebody falls off the thing,
That would be a bad day.
Yeah, that would be rough. But I'm watching every time we come around, one side, I'm watching the whole line of traffic coming down PCH from Santa Barbara all the way down to Malibu, basically, and in that direction. From, Pepperdine University is right there. You're just watching, and it's a Friday night, and it's a solid line of cars. I'm just like, everyone is getting ready to
go party.
Go party. They're getting off school. They're going to go down and hit happy hour, and nobody knows that Mrs. McMullen's kid is out here doing this. And I get a little choked up about it because that's when I realized this is where you're supposed to be.
We're on the right team.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this is my job now.
Yeah. Now, the other side of that, 20 and 20. Was there a specific? I know you ended up doing a couple more than 20, but was there a specific incident or assignment or just gradual buildup?
No.
Where you knew, I think I'm done here.
I just knew that, the longer you stay in the ring, the greater your chances of getting knocked out are. Right? If you continue to box, you will get beat. You will get knocked out. You will sustain injuries. You're going to get hurt. And I was like, well, all right, so 20 years is good. That's respectable. Nobody can. But then I was like, well, now you're in Panama City. What are you going to do? You're going to come back and be a contractor at dive school? I can support my family and, pay my rent or pay my mortgage doing that. And love the area. It's where I grew up. I could be okay with that. But I really didn't feel like I was entirely ready to transition to civilian life yet. And we had some family discussion about it. And I said, I think this is another, I was at 19 right then. And so the pressure was on. You're either going to stay or go. You put in your papers now or take the orders. Mm-hmm. And so I said, well, I'll take the orders because I wanted to finish up my bachelor's. I ended up matriculating directly into a master's program so that I could basically be a better provider when I did make that decision.
But you knew before you took that last set of orders that this was the last ride.
Most likely, yeah. Because at that point, what are you going to do after that? The likelihood of me making Master Chief is very high. If I stay, I'll probably get to
That's how they get you.
That's right. I know it. That's exactly it.
They hook you for a few more.
They rent you cheap. And then, they'll pay you half your pay right now to get out, right? So I'm like, well, I could just roll down to Lejeune and get a battalion and be the command master chief of a battalion. But I had a strong hunch and a little inside birdie at the Bureau of Naval Personnel at BUPERS telling me, you're probably just going to go right across the street to the clinic, to the Quantico clinic. I was like, oh, how likely is that? They're like, well, probably like 99% likely.
That's pretty likely.
I'm like, man, that's pretty rough. And I'm like, man, you're going to go from planning your own operations, jumping out of planes on your own, working with
to ear infections,
to
yelling at some swabby for falling asleep behind the pharmacy desk,
running a DUI line every Monday.
Yeah,
now you're sergeant major. You ain't doing I ain't gonna freaking be taking no kids' temperatures.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's not for me. It's time to go.
So you retired what year?
06.
September 11th, or Afghanistan and Iraq we're
going strong.
We're still going strong
Yes.
At that point. Were those conflicts in any way a factor to you staying in or getting in?
If they had said you can go right down to a battalion, whether it's a recon battalion, I had not been successful in creating E9 structure, which there's a big difference between people and structure, paid structure, right? So we didn't have paid structure for E9 at the new unit. They said, no, there's not enough sailors to warrant a command level rep. I could have had probably horned my way into that just by a few phone calls, or I'd have to perform some act of obeisance for someone to make a call for me, or even I would have loved to be a regimental master chief or something, anywhere, but then you're kind of taking a chief out of their job. You know what I mean? Now I'm basically taking other people's jobs. They want to move up. I've kind of had my time. That was really the main consideration. And it was just, like I said, it was kind of that job, that last 3 years, I'm like, well, anything you do now professionally, you're still putting out for the community, you're still putting out for the service, but you're kind of putting yourself moving backward, So I don't know. I don't feel like I'm expressing it exactly right, but
sometimes it's somebody else's turn.
That's right, and they're just as hungry as I was. They want to move up. They want the bigger roles and the better jobs and the higher responsibility. And
you are not the first person to express that sentiment here.
Yeah, so I feel a little left out, but also there's a lot of patriotism going on, and a lot of people who got great jobs and went on to do great things. A lot of the guys I raised are legends now, and I got a chance to go down to one of my real difficult students was the Master Chief down at SOCOM in Tampa, and I got to go down and attend his ceremony, and and see all the brothers who have grown up and done great things. And that was very rewarding, very gratifying to see those guys, evolve the way they did, stick it out, and do their duty to an extremely high degree.
Yeah. If you could go back to 17-and-a-half-year-old you, knowing that eventually your MOS would get changed to hospital corpsman,
mm-hmm.
and then you'd only ever spend 2 years in a hospital, and then you'd be doing all sorts of crazy cool stuff all over the globe, essentially being a Marine without ever wearing a Marine uniform, to ultimately deciding that it's somebody else's turn. If you could go back to 17-and-a-half-year-old you, would you do it all again?
Right now, today. And one thing I said at my retirement is a big part of me, wants to get on a bus and go back to my folks' house, say hi, and go back to the recruiters and say I'm ready for MEPS and I can piss clean.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, it is now.
These days.
Yep. That whole zero tolerance shift in the 90s was humongous, man. We went from nobody cares. I mean, how many, in the 80s, you'd probably lose a stripe if you pissed hot. In Hawaii, it was a huge deal. It was a huge problem. Mm-hmm. You really get piss tested in Hawaii a lot because it's dope central, They may say pineapple is the cash crop. It's not. It's pakalolo. But, and then the other drugs that aren't as benign as weed, and so a lot of Marines and sailors get hammered in Hawaii. But back then, you basically lose a stripe, 50-50, or you get half your pay for 2 months and
45 and 45.
45 and 45, or if it was the second time, you might go down to the brig for a month in Pearl. Come back to your unit, missing a stripe. You're still back in your platoon, still humping your same ruck, but you're not a team leader no more.
Yeah,
you're a lance corporal trying to get that stripe back.
Yeah,
but you'd get it back though, and it wouldn't be that bad a mark.
Well, that used to be the old saying, right? You got to go down to go up.
That's right.
Yeah. For a while there, having an Article 15 on your record as a young service member was a way to get promoted.
That's right. I mean, people would see my service stripes, they don't match the number of good conduct ribbons I have. I'm like, well, there was that 1 year of it was not 4 consecutive years of good conduct. But
yeah. When you were in Hawaii, or maybe even since you've been back, but did you ever get a chance to dive at Pearl?
I went to Pearl Harbor Dive School.
Or more specifically, the Missouri.
Arizona?
Or the Arizona, yeah.
Yes. We did a trash can dive where you pick up cans. So the whole thing belongs to the Park Service, right? Mm-hmm. It's a national thing. And they basically come in and talk to you. Don't touch the ship. If you hear someone knocking in there, don't knock back. It's not what you think it is. And it's still leaking oil too, so you got to avoid
There's still
that.
Oil slicks out there. Yeah.
So you got to we know where they are. Here's so either swim under them or swim over them, but don't get involved in the oil. And you just pick up cans and trash, and they hand you down a laundry bag and a mesh laundry bag, and you just swim along. You're gonna go high, medium, and low, and then go up down the other side. And then when you're full, you hand up a bag. They give you another bag.
For a while, they used to do it periodically that they would do diving tours of the Arizona. I don't know if they still do. I think the last one that I can remember was in I guess it's been about 10 years now, like 2016, maybe it was 2018, something like that. So I was just wondering if you've ever done anything like that.
No, just the working dive. My class, that was with my dive class.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, other than the picking up trash thing.
It's eerie, scary. It's there's thousands of sailors, 1,600 sailors in there. Mm-hmm. So my barracks was on sub base, and dive school was on Ford Island. So now there's a bridge, but before you used to have to take a little,
like a ferry or
a ferry, but it's like it's called a captain's gig. It's like a double proud boat with a motor on it, and there's some bosun mate swabby, BM2 E5 or E4 running that thing, and that's so if you work on Ford Island, that's the only way to get there.
Yeah.
And when you pass down Battleship Row, you have to stand up and render honors, and the senior man has to hand salute. Everyone else just stands at attention, and that'll get your day right for training at 5:30 in the morning because you got 6 o'clock PT. Yeah. And that there's thousands of sailors just 10 feet beneath your feet, beneath that water line, and they would love to be going to dive school today. Yeah. And so it makes you work hard.
Yeah.
And coming back, same thing.
Well, dude, this has been awesome.
We can't thank you enough.
Yeah, all right. This has been great.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you.
Fantastic stuff, man.
Well, thanks for coming down and letting me come down here and spend the time.
Yeah, man. It's been fantastic.
Yeah. I appreciate what you guys do with getting, on the socials, and there's a lot of folks that are doing some negative stuff, from our communities that are, badmouth bashing each other, and
there's the last 48 hours there's been a lot. He's not on social, so he may not even know.
Social media is a cesspool.
It's a sewer right now.
No question.
The veteran circular fire squad's bad right now.
It is. But I appreciate you guys keeping it upbeat and positive. And
all the behavior that all these people could not stand while they were in uniform. Now that they're out of uniform,
they're exhibiting it
they're
now.
just I give Roger a lot of credit because he deals with all that stuff.
Wow.
And he does it gladly.
I keep us above the fray because we're not going to get in the sludge.
Well, and, for everybody listening, one of the guidance points of, if you have something good to say about somebody, shout them out. If you don't have something not good to say about somebody, we've all been there. You talk about it, but not about them. And that's one of the rules here at Tracer Burnout. So, and, again, to your point, Roger, about, staying above the friendly fire, or, no blue on blue.
Yeah. Friendly fire isn't.
That's right.
right, Dan, what do you think?
That was a remarkable career.
Yeah.
Remarkable career. I mean, as we talked about in the beginning, those plans that he made at 17 and a half years old were etched in stone and then promptly shattered within that first year.
And that happens more often than some may think.
Yes. One of the things that I found really remarkable is not that he spent so much time with the Marines, but that he spent so much time away from the hospitals or clinics or what have you.
Which is by design,
I mean, it didn't start that way, but once he got attached to, an infantry unit, the Marines, he started going to cool guy schools and doing pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah.
And that stuff, doing the cool guy stuff, going to the range all the time, blowing stuff up, jumping out of planes.
Free fall school. Yeah.
All that stuff. That stuff can be super addictive. And do you really want to go back to being in a basement?
Yeah. I get it.
I mean, that's... Yeah,
part of that's what officer life is like. like you're a total badass when you're a young guy, and then one day you're doing PowerPoint slides for the quarterly training brief.
Spending all your day responding to emails.
And the emails.
Yeah. But
so, great career.
What a career, man.
I thought the marine life portion was absolutely fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. Like, I know nothing about that stuff. And
how many people know that? Like, hey.
Well, probably sailors, I would think.
Well, obviously.
That's knuckle-dragging Army guys.
I mean, even in the Navy, I bet there's plenty of people that don't know that they're training, dolphins and sea lions to do all that stuff.
And sharks with frickin' laser beams on their
foreheads. Sharks with frickin' laser beams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
It is. Now, the spending 3 years in the cold water, smelling like fish, would be awful.
Yeah. That would wear thin for sure.
Yeah, and I would not have any patience for dolphins or sea lions, for that matter, acting like children.
I have children for that.
Like I did half of the work, and now you reward me. Like no, do your job.
No, that's not how this works.
Yeah, but no, man, he did.
You should just be happy that I'm even here at all.
He did.
Excuse me.
He did a lot of cool stuff, man.
Yeah.
I mean, go back to the first Gulf War, right? And he's in there, on the border before the ground war kicks off, and he's just plotting out targets. Just like, all right, we got intel over here, we got this over here, we got this over here, and then the ground campaign kicks off, and it's like,
boom, boom, boom.
Press the red button, boop.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
I love it when a good plan works.
When a plan comes together.
Yeah, it doesn't happen that often. Well, the enemy gets a vote, unfortunately. I wish it were just X's and O's on the chalkboard, but yeah.
Dude, that's he had
a good run.
He had a really good run, and that story he told about being on that training mission with the entire.
On the oil platform?
On the Mew, just coming together to do this training operation together.
Do the takedown.
Yeah, the takedown, and having the Cobras come in, and having the fast bows coming in, and then he's sitting there getting ready to fast rope down with a whole bunch of guys, and then off in the distance you see all the guys coming out of their cubicle jobs, stuck in traffic on the PCH. Like, yeah, dude, that would make you like. Yeah, this is where I belong.
Yeah, I had a few times similar moments where I'm looking out the paratroop door on an aircraft and it's pitch black outside and all you just see is lights out on the horizon. You're like, I could be at a nightclub right now. Instead, I'm here. What series of choices led me to this predicament where I find myself? I'm going to choose to call this a win. And it's cold.
Yeah, Brenden, you had a remarkable career. Yeah, you really did.
Thank you so much for basically taking a day to drive down here, spend the better part of 3 hours with us,
Yeah.
and turn around and go home to take
Yeah,
care of your
it was-
dear wife. So
it
we
was awesome.
appreciate you, brother.
We
Thank
really
you.
do. And we appreciate the coins that he brought us.
He did.
One of which is directly up here. Yep, we'll pull it down. Yeah. Brought us a coin for the collection, and now it is up here on the shelf behind us.
So thanks again, brother.
Yeah. Amazing, dude. Yeah.
All right, it's free fire time. Welcome to the free fire area.
What do you got for me?
It's going to be about food.
Oh, one of my favorite subjects.
I'm going to give you a pretty wide latitude, so that there can be some nuance to how you answer this.
Dangerous.
Who has the best fast food French fries?
Oof.
French fries can be defined as broadly as you want, as long as they're potatoes.
Or potato-like substitute. I'm not sure that what you can call McDonald's fries potatoes anymore.
I think, originally started as
Yeah.
potatoes.
Well, okay. Well, we'll just say that across the board, all the fries are actually legitimately made out of potatoes, even though we know that it's not true.
This is the nuance that I was speaking of.
The allegedly potato fries.
I think I saw the alleged potatoes open for Mighty Mighty Boss Tones back in '97.
Yeah. I don't think that's true.
Okay.
I like Chick-fil-A. I'm not really big on the waffle fries. Wendy's is amazing at pretty much everything, and I do love their fries. I like a lot of stuff at McDonald's, but their fries are not it, because you are almost guaranteed to have. They're not. They're not standardized. You are gonna get some of the.
By franchise, you mean?
You're gonna get some of the little crispy things that like aren't even fries anymore. They're shards of glass that were deep fried.
Shards of glass.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Burger King for a while had really good fries. They had the whole campaign in like the late 90s, early 2000s where it was, fresh cut, French fries or whatever. They were really good. But Five Guys, I think it's Five Guys, where they just like they give you your burger that is good, but you've already paid way too much for it, and so the way they make up for it is they just fill the bag with fries, like endless fries, and then you can have as many as you want without paying for more, whatever it is. Theirs are good, but they tend to be really sloppy, floppy, and like still covered in the oil.
Did I make a mistake asking you this at dinner time?
Probably.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to stick with Wendy's. I like Arby's curly fries, but again, you're gonna get some that are really good, and then you're gonna get some where it's like, how can you even call this a fry? Yeah. I'm gonna have to stick with Wendy's, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And as far as like In-N-Out, Whataburger, Jack in the Box, whatever.
That's fair.
I don't care enough to rate them. Yeah.
I nothing them. As for me,
Oh,
go ahead.
I didn't even think about Sonic. No, Sonic does not have even in the top five fries.
Okay. For me, most of the fast food restaurants that you just mentioned, I don't really eat at least not regularly enough to have a sample size. Or if I do, I have Sonic pretty regularly, but it's usually a milkshake or an ice cream or something like that. So I couldn't tell you the last time I had a hot meal at Sonic. So honestly, the same goes for McDonald's and Burger King. I did have a Wendy's a few months ago for the first time in years, because burger joints are not my go-to for fast food. So my answer is the Arby's curly fry. I'm a Arby's curly fry partisan. The variation, I think, is irrelevant. I don't care because they're all good. I do like Chick-fil-A waffle fries. So that would be my second. So both my answers are non-standard French fries.
Yeah. I am you know how I feel about fast food. I am not a consumer of fast food. I can make something better and cheaper myself.
Yeah.
But whenever I do get fast food, I always get fries, even if the fries doesn't necessarily come with whatever the meal is, because I like fries.
Yeah,
I like fries.
Freedom fries.
Freedom fries. Yes. And I understand your choices. I don't agree with them, but I understand it. I do. One thing I will give Arby's in particular is because Arby's has that seasoning that they coat the fries with.
Yeah.
You're never gonna get one that is just like over seasoned, where that's all where it's just coated and like falling apart. And I appreciate that. Likewise, you're not going to get one that is under seasoned as well. So I don't know how they do that. I'm not a fry cook, but that is one. Everything as far as like taste is pretty much uniform across the board when it comes to the curly fries. One of my big pet peeves with Chick-fil-A waffle fries is not the texture necessarily, but I always have to add salt. They're never flavorful enough. If I wanted to just bite a potato, I could do that at home.
I use the buffalo dipping sauce renderings. More salt unnecessary.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I mean I'll do that if I get something that comes with, like if I go to Popeyes and I get the spicy chicken tenders, which I do love. I will then use it used to be honey mustard, and now it's like the Mardi Gras mustard or whatever.
No idea.
Whatever. I will use that dipping sauce with the fries.
We will save best fast food fried chicken for another free fire area. So we'll put a pin in that and come back to it.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, thanks for hanging out with us today.
Yeah.
Please give us a like, share, subscribe on social media.
Yeah. And if you agree with me that Roger's a loon for picking Chick-fil-A fries.
Well, Arby's was number one.
Or perhaps even that fries that are not standardized and straight cut are not fries at all, then by all means, comment on social media and let your bellicosity towards Roger's choices be known.
I don't know how to respond to that. Thanks, everybody.
And remember, your service matters.